It was a day like any other when May Musk, the renowned model and dietitian, decided to indulge in a little luxury. She had just finished a long week of work, and as a mother to one of the most famous entrepreneurs in the world, she often found solace in quiet moments of retail therapy. As she walked into the sleek, modern interior of the luxury boutique, the sound of soft jazz music filled the air, mingling with the subtle scent of expensive perfumes. It was the kind of store that made you feel like you had entered another world, one where elegance, beauty, and exclusivity reigned supreme. May had been here before. She knew the game. She knew the unspoken rules of the fashion world, how appearances mattered, how one's wealth and status were often measured by the brands they wore. But she didn't care about all that. She was here to treat herself, to buy something new for herself, for the first time in what felt like forever. A moment of peace amidst the whirlwind of her life. As she made her way toward the designer handbags, she noticed a young sales associate eyeing her from across the room. May didn't think much of it at first. She had been around the world and interacted with all sorts of people, some kind, some indifferent, some condescending. But something about the way the associate stared at her made her uncomfortable. May brushed it off as nothing more than a fleeting feeling. She was used to the glances, after all, she was used to being both admired and scrutinized, especially being the mother of Elon Musk. She picked up a luxurious handbag, admiring its craftsmanship, when the associate walked over. He was young, probably no older than 25, with a sharp, polished appearance, the kind of person who likely thrived in the world of high fashion. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked in a tone that was just a little too cold for her liking. May smiled politely, responding, "I'm just browsing, thank you." The young man didn't smile back. Instead, he looked her up and down, his gaze lingering a little too long on her outfit, simple but elegant. A pair of well-tailored jeans, a classic blazer, and minimal jewelry. It wasn't the attire of someone who walked into these kinds of stores every day, and clearly, he noticed. "Would you like to try something else?" he asked again, his tone now somewhat dismissive. May frowned. Something about his attitude rubbed her the wrong way, but she remained composed. "No, I think this one will do," she said, holding up the handbag. The associate didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked over her shoulder, as if searching for someone more worthy of his attention. May's eyebrows furrowed as she felt the weight of his disregard settle into her stomach. She was no stranger to prejudice, she had lived through a lifetime of being judged by her appearance, her age, and sometimes even her gender. But there was something about this moment, this interaction, that felt different. It was more blatant. More hurtful. Before she could gather her thoughts, the associate turned and walked away without so much as a "thank you" or an offer to help further. May was left standing there, the beautiful bag still clutched in her hand, staring after him. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had just been made to feel small in a place that was supposed to be welcoming to everyone. As the minutes ticked by, her thoughts began to spiral. Was it because of her age? Was it because she wasn't dressed in the latest high-fashion trends? Or was it simply because she was, in his eyes, just another older woman who didn't fit into the glossy, glamorous mold that these high-end stores seemed to worship? Her phone buzzed in her bag, breaking her train of thought. It was a text from Elon. She smiled to herself, always finding comfort in hearing from her son. "Hey Mom, how's your day going?" it read. She quickly typed back, her fingers pausing as she considered what to say. Part of her wanted to tell him everything, the slight, the treatment she had just endured. But another part of her knew that Elon was a busy man with 1,000 things on his mind. He had his own battles to fight. But no, she thought, I need to tell him. He always had a way of making her feel seen, heard, and valued, something she wasn't feeling in that moment. "Not great," she replied, "I was just at the store, and the associate treated me like I didn't belong." Within seconds, Elon's response came through. "Are you okay? What happened?" She could almost hear the concern in his text. Elon Musk had a reputation for being fiercely protective, especially when it came to his family. And no matter how much success he had attained, he had always been a loving son, ever mindful of the sacrifices his mother had made for him. May took a deep breath, not wanting to burden him with too much, but at the same time, not wanting to let this moment pass without standing up for herself. "I'm fine, darling," she typed. "Just a little hurt by the way I was treated. It's a bit ridiculous, isn't it?" She hit send and waited for his reply. A part of her knew that her son would do more than just sympathize with her. He would act. That's what Elon Musk did. He didn't just complain about the problems of the world, he found ways to fix them. And when it came to his family, he would move mountains to make sure they felt valued, heard, and respected. A few seconds later, another message popped up on her screen. "Mom, don't worry. I'll handle it. You deserve better than that. I'll make sure they understand who they're dealing with." May's heart warmed at his words. She knew exactly what he meant. Elon didn't need to be told how to stand up for those he loved. He had a way of getting things done, whether it was through his companies, his influence, or sheer willpower. And if there was one thing May knew for sure, it was that her son would never let someone treat her poorly, not if he could help it. "Thanks, Elon," she typed back, feeling a sense of reassurance. "I appreciate it." As she looked around the store, she suddenly felt out of place in the very world that she had once been so comfortable in. The glitz, the glamour, the supposed sophistication, it all seemed hollow in that moment. She didn't need a designer bag to validate her worth. She was May Musk, a woman who had built a life on her own terms. And no matter how the world tried to judge her, she knew that her value wasn't measured by what she wore or where she shopped. But as she stepped out of the store, her phone buzzing with a message from Elon, she couldn't help but wonder, what would happen when her son found out about the way she had been treated? How far would he go to make things right? Her answer was coming soon. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? May Musk had always been the epitome of grace under pressure. Born in Canada to a family that had never been wealthy, she learned early on that success in life wasn't just about luck, it was about perseverance, determination, and being unapologetically yourself. Her childhood was far from glamorous. Raised in a modest household, May and her siblings were taught to work hard for everything they had. There was no silver spoon, no cushy life of privilege, just hard work and dreams that extended far beyond what most people imagined possible for a small-town girl. At the age of 15, May's family moved to South Africa, where she would spend the remainder of her adolescence. As a teenager in a foreign country, May quickly realized how different her world was from the one she had left behind in Canada. In a place where beauty standards were rigid, she was often told that she didn't quite fit in. But instead of shrinking, she grew bolder. She embraced her uniqueness, a quality that would go on to define her career in ways she couldn't have imagined. Her career as a model started by chance. At 15, she was scouted by a photographer who saw something in her, something raw, real, and different. By the time she was in her early 20s, May was working in the modeling industry, appearing in advertisements and magazine spreads. While many women in the industry struggled to maintain a youthful appearance, May flourished. She defied the odds, rejecting the pressure to conform to conventional beauty standards and instead cultivating a distinctive style and attitude that made her stand out. But success didn't come without its challenges. May's journey wasn't without heartbreak. She went through a difficult divorce in her early 30s, raising her 3 children, Elon, Kimball, and Tosca, on her own. There were days when money was tight, when she had to juggle multiple jobs to keep the family afloat. But through it all, she never gave up. She taught her children the value of hard work, self-reliance, and never taking no for an answer. Elon, in particular, was a child who always stood out. Even as a young boy, he was driven, curious, and unrelenting in his pursuit of knowledge. May often marveled at his intellect and his hunger for learning. She would catch him reading books about space, technology, and business before he was even a teenager. She knew from an early age that Elon was destined for something extraordinary. She just didn't know how extraordinary it would be. As Elon's success grew, so did May's recognition. She wasn't just Elon Musk's mom anymore, she had built her own career, her own identity. She became a sought-after model, gracing the covers of magazines and walking the runways at major fashion events. But even with the newfound fame, she never lost touch with who she was or where she came from. She remained grounded, choosing to focus on her work and her children rather than the superficial world of celebrity. Despite her success, the prejudices she faced never truly disappeared. People often underestimated her, assuming she was only famous because of her son's achievements. There were always whispers behind her back, the occasional patronizing glance, the subtle condescension from people who didn't take the time to understand the woman she had become. But May never let it bother her. She had learned long ago that people would judge you no matter what you did, and the best response was to keep moving forward. However, that didn't mean it didn't sting. It wasn't easy to walk into a room where you were dismissed or ignored, where your worth was judged solely on your appearance or your relationship to someone famous. It was a challenge she had learned to navigate, but like every challenge, there were moments that tested her resolve. The incident in the luxury store that day brought those feelings of being underestimated rushing back. It wasn't the first time she had been treated this way, but it felt different. It wasn't just about being brushed off. It was about the way she was made to feel like she didn't belong in a world that, on some level, she had worked her whole life to fit into. May thought about her son, Elon, as she stood outside the boutique. She smiled softly, reflecting on the times he had stood up for her, the times he had shown her nothing but love and respect, even when the world seemed to do the opposite. Elon had always been her biggest supporter. In fact, May often said that raising him had been her greatest achievement. She had taught him how to be resilient, how to overcome adversity, but it was clear that he had learned that lesson well. And now, as she stood there, knowing that her son was furious on her behalf, a sense of pride washed over her. She wasn't just his mother. She was a woman who had built a life through her own hard work, a woman who had earned every bit of respect that came her way, whether people recognized it or not. With a deep breath, May looked down at her phone, seeing another message from Elon. "Mom, I'm going to take care of this. I'll handle it. Don't let them get to you. You've worked too hard for people to treat you like this." She could hear the resolve in his words. Elon wasn't the type to back down from injustice, not when it came to his family. She knew he would make things right. May chuckled softly to herself, feeling a warmth in her heart. It was times like these that reminded her of the incredible bond she shared with her son. No matter how busy he got, no matter how many challenges he faced in his own life, he always found time to protect those he loved. But it wasn't just about Elon now. It was about standing up for herself. May Musk had earned her place in this world, and she wasn't going to let anyone take that away from her. Not now, not ever. As she walked back to her car, her mind began to race with thoughts of how Elon would handle the situation. She wasn't sure exactly what he would do, but she had a feeling that the luxury store would soon regret their actions. Elon Musk wasn't a man who let slights go unpunished. And when it came to protecting his family, he had a reputation for taking things to the next level. May smiled, knowing that the next chapter of this story was about to unfold in a way no one, especially that arrogant sales associate, could have anticipated. Elon Musk had always been fiercely protective of his mother. Even when his life became an overwhelming whirlwind of technological breakthroughs, space exploration, and ventures that made him a household name, he never forgot where he came from, or who had supported him through thick and thin. May Musk was not just a mother to him, she was a mentor, a rock, and a source of unwavering love. So when he read the text about how she had been treated in that luxury boutique, his stomach tightened with anger. The sheer audacity of that sales associate to treat her like she didn't belong in that world filled him with a burning desire to make things right. In an instant, he knew he wouldn't just let this slide. His mother deserved respect, and he wasn't going to let anyone take that from her, not in a million years. Elon quickly dialed his mother's number. The phone rang for a few moments before she answered. "Hi, Elon," she said, her voice steady, but there was a subtle hint of frustration beneath the calm exterior. "I got your message." "Elon, don't worry about it, really," she added softly, trying to brush off her feelings. "It's not a big deal." But Elon wouldn't hear it. "Mom, I do worry about it," he said, his voice firm. "And it's a big deal. No one should treat you like that. Not you. Not anyone." May sighed softly. "I know, sweetheart, but I've been through worse. I can handle it." Elon's anger flared up again. He hated hearing his mother downplay what had happened. To him, no matter what she'd been through, no one had the right to dismiss her. No one had the right to make her feel small. "Listen, Mom," he said, his tone gentle but determined. "This isn't just about what happened at the store. It's about how people think they can get away with disrespecting others just because they assume they know something about them. I'm not going to let them treat you like this." May could hear the fire in his voice. She had always known that Elon had a deep sense of justice, but hearing him so resolute made her heart swell with pride. She knew he would take action. He always did. "Elon, you don't need to get involved," she said, trying to quell his anger. "It's just one rude salesperson. We don't have to make a big scene." But Elon wasn't listening. "Mom, it's not just one salesperson. It's the system that allows people to be treated this way. And it's not just you, it's anyone who gets overlooked, dismissed, or disrespected. I'll handle this. You don't need to worry about it." May fell silent for a moment, taking in his words. She knew Elon's tendency to go all in when he was passionate about something, and she knew that when he said he was going to do something, he wouldn't back down. But she also knew the consequences of his actions. Elon Musk wasn't a man who did things quietly, and his reach was far and wide. If he decided to intervene, things would escalate quickly. "All right, Elon," she finally said, her voice soft but resigned. "If you think it's the right thing to do, then I trust you. But please, don't make it worse than it has to be." Elon smiled, despite the anger still simmering inside him. "You're my mom. I'll never let anyone treat you like that. I'll make sure they understand who they're dealing with." After they hung up, Elon immediately got to work. He picked up his phone and fired off a message to his assistant, Sarah. "Find out who's in charge of the luxury store May visited today. Get me the name of the manager or anyone in a position of power. This is urgent." Within minutes, Sarah replied with the name of the store manager, along with contact details. Elon didn't waste a second. He dialed the number and waited as it rang through. When the call was picked up, a polite voice on the other end answered. "Good afternoon, this is Emma, how can I help you?" "I'm Elon Musk," he began, his voice calm but purposeful. "I'm calling regarding an incident that took place earlier today at your store. My mother, May Musk, was in your boutique, and she was treated poorly by one of your sales associates." There was a brief pause on the other end. Elon could almost hear the manager's mind racing to put together the right response. "I'm terribly sorry to hear that, Mr. Musk," Emma said, her tone now more measured. "We pride ourselves on customer service, and I'm shocked to hear that one of our employees treated your mother in such a way." Elon wasn't interested in excuses. "I want to know exactly what steps you're going to take to ensure this doesn't happen again. I expect a full investigation into the incident and a formal apology to my mother." "Of course, Mr. Musk," Emma replied quickly. "I'll look into this immediately and ensure we address the issue." "Good," Elon said, his voice still steady. "And make sure it's handled professionally. I don't want to hear about this again." My mother deserves the utmost respect, and I won't tolerate anyone disrespecting her. There was another pause, longer this time, as the manager processed the weight of Elon's words. Understood, Mr. Musk. I'll personally handle the matter and ensure it's resolved to your satisfaction. Elon hung up the phone, his anger still simmering beneath the surface. He had taken the first step, but he knew there was more to be done. As much as he hated to admit it, the world didn't always see May for who she truly was. They saw her as an accessory to his success, a woman with a famous son, but not someone who had spent her life building her own career and earning her own place in the world. But that would change. No one would overlook May Musk ever again. Elon's mind raced with ideas. This wasn't just about one store. It was about a larger issue, one that he had been passionate about for years, breaking down the barriers that society had built up around people, especially women, who had been underestimated, overlooked, and disrespected. He wasn't going to stop at just one apology. He would use this moment to make a statement, to show the world that people like his mother deserved more than just acknowledgement, they deserved the respect they had earned. As he sat back in his chair, his mind already racing ahead to what he needed to do next, he couldn't help but think about the impact his actions would have. This wouldn't just be about fixing one wrong. This would be about sending a message that would reverberate far beyond the walls of a luxury store. And he wasn't about to let anyone forget who May Musk really was. The following day, as the sun crept higher into the sky over Silicon Valley, Elon Musk sat in his office at SpaceX, overlooking the sprawling campus. The constant hum of innovation was the heartbeat of his life, but today, his focus was different. Today, he wasn't thinking about rockets or electric cars. Today, he was thinking about his mother, May Musk, and how he could make sure that no one ever disrespected her again. He'd already made his first move by calling the luxury store manager, and now it was time to escalate things to a larger stage. Elon wasn't one to do things halfway. If he was going to make an impact, it would need to be big. After all, the world didn't take you seriously unless you showed them just how much power you could wield. With a determined look on his face, Elon picked up his phone again and dialed Sarah, his trusted assistant. Get me the contact for the CEO of the store chain. I want to speak with them personally about how they plan to address the incident with my mother. Got it, Elon. I'll have it for you in a minute, Sarah replied, clearly used to his direct and no-nonsense approach. Minutes later, Sarah sent him the CEO's contact information. Elon didn't hesitate. He called the CEO immediately, not wasting a second. As the phone rang, Elon thought about how quickly things had escalated in the few hours since he'd first heard about the incident. He wasn't used to waiting for results, and this time, he wasn't going to. When the call was picked up, a smooth, confident voice greeted him. Good morning, Mr. Musk, this is Greg, how can I help you today? Elon didn't waste any time on pleasantries. Greg, this is Elon Musk. I'm calling about an incident at one of your stores involving my mother, May Musk. She was treated disrespectfully by one of your employees yesterday, and I want to know what you're doing to rectify the situation. There was a brief silence, the kind that spoke volumes. Elon could practically hear the wheels turning in Greg's mind as he processed the gravity of the situation. When the CEO finally responded, there was a shift in his tone, a subtle change from the professional detachment to something more serious. I am truly sorry to hear that, Mr. Musk. That is completely unacceptable, and I want to assure you that we will take immediate action. This is not how we expect our staff to treat customers, especially someone like your mother, who I understand is a prominent figure. Elon clenched his jaw. The apology sounded good on paper, but he wasn't satisfied yet. Apologies are fine, but they're not enough. I want to see real consequences for this. I want a full investigation into what happened, and I want this sales associate to be held accountable. More than that, I want your entire staff to undergo sensitivity training. This isn't just about one bad employee, it's about an entire culture that allows this kind of behavior to happen. There was another pause before Greg responded. Understood. We will take immediate action. I'll personally oversee the investigation and ensure that this doesn't happen again. Elon wasn't done yet. I'm also expecting a public apology. Not just a private one to my mother, but a statement to the public about how you plan to address this issue. I want to see that your company is committed to treating everyone with respect, regardless of who they are or who they're related to. The CEO hesitated for a moment before speaking again, and when he did, his voice was tinged with a mixture of concern and respect. I understand, Mr. Musk. I'll make sure the apology is made publicly and that we take the necessary steps to ensure this doesn't happen again. Please know that we take this very seriously. Elon leaned back in his chair, staring out at the sprawling landscape of his company's campuses. He wasn't sure what kind of public apology would come of it, but he knew that this was far from over. He was going to make sure that the world knew how important May Musk was, not just to him, but as a woman who had spent her life breaking barriers and forging her own path. Before ending the call, Elon spoke again, his voice calm but unwavering. Greg, I want to make one thing clear. My mother deserves respect. This incident won't define her, but how you handle it will define your company. Make sure you do it right. With that, he hung up. As the day went on, news of the incident started to spread. Word had gotten out, and the social media buzz was palpable. May Musk had built her own reputation over the years as a strong, independent woman, and this latest debacle was only adding fuel to the fire. People from all walks of life were rallying behind her. There were tweets, posts, and comments flooding in, with many expressing their outrage at the treatment she had received. But it wasn't just about public outrage, it was about showing the world that this kind of behavior wouldn't be tolerated. Elon knew this was a moment that could be used for greater good, a chance to create a ripple effect that would make people think twice before judging someone based solely on appearances or assumptions. As the day came to a close, Elon's phone buzzed with an incoming email. He opened it immediately. It was a statement from the luxury store chain's CEO. We sincerely apologize to May Musk for the disrespectful treatment she received at one of our stores. We understand that this is unacceptable, and we are taking immediate action to investigate the situation. We are committed to ensuring that all our customers, regardless of their status or background, are treated with dignity and respect. As part of this commitment, we will be implementing sensitivity and customer service training across all of our locations. It wasn't just a generic corporate apology. It was a strong statement of accountability. Elon felt a sense of satisfaction, but he knew this was only the first step. There was still more work to be done. The public would need to see that the company truly followed through on its promises. The phone buzzed again, this time with a text message from May. Thank you, Elon. I know you're doing what you think is best, but you don't have to fight every battle for me. I've fought my own for years. Elon smiled as he typed his response. I know, Mom. But this one is personal. He leaned back in his chair, allowing himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. He had done what needed to be done. And in doing so, he had shown the world what he had always known, May Musk was not just a mother, she was a force to be reckoned with. And if anyone forgot that, Elon Musk was more than happy to remind them. Tomorrow, he would have another conversation, one that would set the tone for the future. But for tonight, he could rest easy, knowing that his mother had been heard. The news of the apology from the luxury store chain quickly went viral. Headlines across the internet echoed with the story of how Elon Musk had defended his mother, May Musk, against the ill treatment she had endured. People from all over the world, women, parents, advocates for dignity and respect, expressed their support. Social media exploded with hashtags like #RespectMay and #JusticeForMay Musk, quickly garnering millions of posts and comments. What started as a seemingly isolated incident, a brief moment of public shaming in a high-end boutique, had transformed into something much larger, a cultural movement. It wasn't just about one person being treated unfairly, it was a universal message about standing up against prejudice and the stereotyping of individuals, especially women who had worked hard to earn their place in the world. For Elon, the impact of what had just transpired was both thrilling and sobering. As a man accustomed to taking risks and facing obstacles head-on, he'd never expected the aftermath to hit him this hard. The ripple effect of his actions had already been felt across the globe, and it wasn't just confined to one luxury store or a single apology. People were talking about respect, about how each individual, no matter their background or appearance, deserved to be treated with fairness and kindness. But while many celebrated the victory, Elon knew this wasn't the end of the road. It was only the beginning. A few days after the public apology, Elon was in his office at Tesla, watching a series of interviews on his laptop. The interviews were with a mix of pundits, news anchors, and even academics, all discussing the cultural implications of the Musk incident. While some viewed it as a simple case of an isolated incident gone public, others, especially those advocating for social justice, saw it as a shining example of how a public figure could use their platform to address systemic issues. One particular interview caught Elon's attention. A well-known social critic, Angela Thompson, was speaking on a popular talk show about the broader implications of the incident. Elon Musk's response to his mother's mistreatment is a pivotal moment in the ongoing conversation about power, privilege, and respect, Angela said, her voice measured but passionate. This incident in the luxury store is, unfortunately, reflective of how women, especially older women, are often dismissed in society. But the way Elon handled it has set a new precedent. It's a reminder that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of their background, appearance, or personal connections. Elon sat back in his chair, taking in the words. His initial frustration with the store's actions had evolved into something more profound. He hadn't just offended his mother, he had inadvertently sparked a conversation that millions of people were now engaging in. It felt like a responsibility he hadn't expected to bear, but he knew it was one he was capable of handling. As he closed the laptop, Elon's phone buzzed with an incoming text message. It was from May. Elon, I've been thinking about everything that happened. I'm proud of you for standing up for me. But I also want you to think about what this means moving forward. You've always fought for what's right, but now you have a platform that can actually change things. This is bigger than just one incident. Elon read the message twice, the weight of his mother's words settling into his mind. It was true. The moment he had acted to defend her had shifted the conversation, but now there was an opportunity to do more, something lasting. The next few weeks saw more developments. The luxury store chain CEO, Greg, had followed through with his promise. They not only implemented a series of sensitivity training sessions for their staff, but they also launched a public campaign highlighting inclusivity and respect. The store's executives even reached out to Musk, inviting her to speak at a leadership event about her experiences and how businesses could better serve all customers, especially those from marginalized groups. The event, which took place a month after the incident, became an unexpected turning point. Musk was invited to give the keynote address, and despite her initial reservations, she agreed. She had been through enough in her life to know that some moments were too important to ignore. On the day of the event, May stood before an audience of business leaders, influencers, and activists, many of whom had followed the story of her mistreatment and Elon's intervention. As she spoke, her words were clear and powerful. Respect is not a luxury, she began, her voice calm yet assertive. It's a necessity. And we can't just expect to give respect only to those we deem worthy. It must be universal. No one should feel less than anyone else, whether they walk into a store in their finest clothes or in work boots. And that includes older women, people of color, and anyone who society has decided to overlook. The room was silent as she continued, her voice gaining strength with every word. I've lived my life with the conviction that I am worthy of respect, no matter my age, my appearance, or the fact that I'm often seen as the mother of someone famous. But I didn't get here by accepting less than what I deserve, and neither should anyone else. My son's actions in defending me were not just about a mother-son bond. They were about a message that we all need to internalize: respect is not a luxury. It's our shared right. The crowd erupted in applause, and May smiled, feeling a sense of empowerment she hadn't felt before. She had always known her worth, but now, more than ever, the world was starting to understand it too. Back at SpaceX, Elon watched the event live-streamed in his office, his mind already racing ahead. This wasn't just about his mother or one incident in a store anymore. This was about a movement, a ripple effect that had already touched countless lives. He knew that May's words had resonated deeply, and he could feel the shift in the atmosphere. It wasn't just about changing how people were treated in luxury boutiques, it was about changing the way people viewed respect as a whole. For Elon, this moment marked a pivotal point in his own life and career. He had the resources, the platform, and the ability to influence global conversations. And he wasn't about to let that power go to waste. He knew that whatever came next, he would continue to use his voice for good. Not just for his mother, but for everyone who had ever been dismissed, belittled, or made to feel small. It was time to make sure that no one else had to endure what May had faced. As the event ended and the applause died down, Elon's phone buzzed again. It was a message from his mother. "Thank you, Elon. This is just the beginning. We've started something much bigger than ourselves." He smiled as he typed his reply. "You're right, Mom. Let's keep going." The journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. Elon Musk had always been a man of action, constantly moving forward with bold ideas and big ambitions. But now, with the movement sparked by his mother's treatment in that luxury store, he felt a deeper sense of responsibility weighing on him. This wasn't just another business venture or tech breakthrough. This was about reshaping societal attitudes toward respect, dignity, and equality. The weeks that followed the keynote event saw an explosion of support from unexpected corners of the world. May's speech had ignited a fire in people, especially women and marginalized groups, who had long been silenced or dismissed. As the hashtag respect is not a luxury gained traction, it quickly became more than just a social media trend, it turned into a global call for change. Elon and May both received messages of support from activists, celebrities, business leaders, and even ordinary people who had felt the sting of discrimination and disrespect in their own lives. It became clear that this wasn't just a story of a mother and her famous son. This was about something larger, something everyone could relate to, the desire for basic human dignity. One evening, as Elon sat in his office at Tesla, he picked up the phone and dialed his mother. He had been thinking a lot about their next steps and how they could harness this moment for long-lasting change. "Hey, Mom. I've been thinking. What if we took this further?" Elon said, his voice filled with resolve. May's response was immediate and enthusiastic. "What do you have in mind, Elon?" "I think it's time we create something that keeps this conversation alive, something that goes beyond just talking about respect. We need an organization. A foundation that can drive this message forward. A platform where we can hold businesses accountable and help individuals who face mistreatment. We can take this fight global," Elon proposed. May took a deep breath, considering her son's idea. She had spent much of her life fighting her own battles, but this was different. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about changing the way people viewed respect, starting with those who were most often overlooked. "I love the idea, Elon. But it needs to be more than just an initiative. It has to be a movement, something that people can get behind, not just for a week or a month, but for years to come." Elon smiled, knowing his mother's words were exactly what he needed to hear. "Right. A movement. Let's call it the Respect Revolution." And just like that, the foundation was born. Over the next few months, the Respect Revolution took shape. Elon used his vast resources and networks to gather a team of dedicated individuals, activists, business leaders, legal experts, and influencers, who shared his vision of a world where respect was not just a privilege for the few but a right for everyone. The mission was simple but profound: to ensure that people, regardless of their gender, age, race, or status, would be treated with dignity in every aspect of life, from shopping in high-end stores to accessing education and healthcare. One of the first major initiatives of the Respect Revolution was a public awareness campaign that featured powerful stories from everyday people. These were real stories of mistreatment, incidents of ageism, sexism, racism, and discrimination, that had gone unaddressed for far too long. The campaign was designed to highlight the personal impact of these experiences, showing how deeply disrespect affected individuals' lives and the ripple effect it had on their communities. The campaign was launched with a viral video that featured May Musk, standing confidently in front of a large crowd, telling her story. She spoke about the luxury store incident, but she also shared the broader context of the many times throughout her life when she had been made to feel small or irrelevant because of her age or appearance. As the video circulated across social media, it quickly caught the attention of media outlets and influencers. The message was simple, yet powerful: respect is a right, not a luxury. A few weeks later, Elon and May were invited to appear on a major talk show to discuss the Respect Revolution. It was a pivotal moment in the movement's timeline. Sitting across from the host, Elon and May exchanged looks of determination. "Thank you both for joining us today," the host began. "Your story has really resonated with people. Can you tell us more about what's next for the Respect Revolution?" Elon took the lead. "Well, the goal of the Respect Revolution is to create lasting change. We want to bring respect into every corner of society. Whether it's in the workplace, schools, or even the stores we shop at, we want to make sure people are treated with dignity. And we're not just talking about the big issues, we're focusing on the small moments too. Every single instance of disrespect adds up, and we want to address that." May nodded in agreement. "It's not just about making a point, it's about changing the culture. Respect shouldn't be a bonus, it should be expected. People should feel valued no matter who they are or where they come from. We've all had moments where we've been dismissed, and we want to change that. It starts with individuals but spreads to businesses, schools, governments, the whole world." The host leaned forward, intrigued. "You mentioned businesses. How do you plan to get companies to embrace this kind of culture change?" Elon smiled. "We've already started. One of the first things we're doing is partnering with companies to implement respect audits. These audits assess how well a company's culture aligns with values of inclusion, fairness, and respect. If a company doesn't meet the mark, we'll work with them to improve. But the ones that do will get a Respect Revolution certification, a seal that shows they're committed to treating everyone fairly." The host seemed impressed. "That sounds like a powerful initiative. Do you think it's realistic to expect companies to adopt these changes on a wide scale?" "I do," Elon said, his tone firm. "Change is hard, but it's not impossible. If we can convince people that this is about more than just good business, it's about doing the right thing, then we'll see real progress. It's not just about getting people to buy into our cause, it's about creating a world where treating others with respect is the baseline, not the exception." As the Respect Revolution gained momentum, it began attracting the attention of global leaders. Politicians, heads of state, and diplomats reached out to Elon and May to express their support and discuss how they could incorporate respect into their policies. But it wasn't just politicians who were paying attention. The movement also caught the interest of corporations, many of whom were looking for ways to improve their public image. Some companies had already implemented basic diversity and inclusion training, but now they saw the Respect Revolution as an opportunity to take things to the next level. Elon and May were on the front lines of a cultural transformation, pushing businesses and governments to think more deeply about how they treated people. But they knew that this wasn't something that could be solved with a few laws or corporate initiatives. This was a fight that would take time, persistence, and the collective will of individuals everywhere. The road ahead was long, but as Elon looked at the messages of support flooding in from all over the world, he couldn't help but feel that they were on the brink of something extraordinary. For the first time in his life, Elon Musk wasn't just changing the world with technology. He was changing it with the power of respect. And that, he knew, was the most important innovation of all. As the respect revolution gained traction, it quickly became clear that this movement wasn't going to be contained within a single country or region. The idea of respect transcended borders, cultures, and industries. People from all walks of life began to see the importance of treating each other with dignity, whether in the workplace, at home, or in the public sphere. For Elon Musk, this was a moment that felt both exhilarating and overwhelming. He had always dreamed big, his work at SpaceX and Tesla was proof of that, but this felt different. The respect revolution wasn't just another innovative project. It was something that could have a far-reaching impact on global society. Musk, always the wise voice of reason, kept reminding Elon that their work wasn't just about creating another successful initiative. It was about changing attitudes, deeply embedded, long-held beliefs about power, privilege, and respect. A few months after the respect revolution officially launched, Elon and May were invited to speak at the United Nations. It was a historic moment, their first appearance on such a prestigious global stage. The invitation came after the movement's rapid success, as the world's political and corporate leaders began to take notice of the change they were driving. The UN General Assembly was a vast, intimidating space, filled with representatives from all over the world. As Elon and May walked onto the stage, the weight of the moment was undeniable. They had made it. What began as a simple act of standing up for a mother in a luxury store had evolved into something that had the potential to change the world. Elon looked out at the sea of faces, some skeptical, some eager to hear what they had to say. But what struck him the most was the presence of the younger generation, sitting in the front rows. They were the future, the ones who would carry the torch of this movement forward. Musk stepped up to the podium, her voice calm yet commanding as she addressed the assembly. "Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady, "we are here today because we believe that respect is the foundation of every thriving society. We're not here to simply ask for tolerance or acceptance. We're here to demand that every human being be treated with dignity, no matter their age, race, gender, or social status." There was a brief silence in the room, a moment where May's words seemed to resonate deeply within everyone present. Then she continued, her words ringing with the force of truth. "Respect is not a luxury. It's a necessity. We live in a world where too many people are overlooked, marginalized, or made to feel less than others simply because they don't fit into some preconceived notion of what is acceptable. But we know better. And we are here today to tell the world that we will no longer stand idly by while this happens. We will fight for respect, for fairness, for equality." Elon, standing beside her, felt a surge of pride. He had never seen his mother speak with such power. This was more than just a speech, it was a call to arms for the world to embrace respect as a fundamental human right. The response to May's speech was overwhelming. Social media erupted with praise, and world leaders took to their platforms to share their support. The UN Assembly was buzzing with energy, and many of the representatives expressed their commitment to take action within their own countries. But for Elon and May, the moment was just the beginning. While the speech had created a stir, they knew they needed to follow through. Their work wouldn't be complete until the principles they had outlined were truly embedded in societies around the world. The next day, Elon met with a group of key business leaders and policymakers who had gathered at the UN for a private roundtable discussion. The topic of conversation was clear: how could the respect revolution be scaled to create tangible change in businesses, education systems, and governments? "Respect is the key to unlocking innovation, equality, and progress," Elon began, addressing the group. "It's not just about creating a better work environment, it's about creating a society where everyone feels valued. And when people feel valued, they perform at their best. This isn't just moral, it's practical." One of the CEOs at the table, a woman who ran a large international corporation, nodded. "You're right, Elon. We've seen firsthand how improving company culture leads to higher retention, better performance, and stronger loyalty. But it has to start at the top. Leaders have to demonstrate respect, not just in their policies, but in their actions." May, who had joined the conversation, added, "That's why the respect revolution is so important. It's not just about having diversity policies or conducting sensitivity training. It's about embedding respect into every layer of an organization. From the C-suite to the front line." Elon agreed. "Exactly. This is about changing the way people think. Respect should be a fundamental part of any business strategy, and it should be measured and rewarded just like any other key performance indicator." The conversation quickly turned to practical solutions. One of the key ideas that emerged was a new kind of certification, an international respect seal that businesses could earn by committing to and demonstrating a genuine culture of respect in their practices. It would be similar to a sustainability certification but focused on how well companies treated their employees, customers, and the communities they served. Back in the US, the respect revolution began to gain traction in even more unexpected areas. Schools, community organizations, and even local governments started adopting the principles of respect, working with the foundation to create more inclusive environments. May was invited to speak at high schools across the country, where students responded with enthusiasm, eager to embrace a culture of respect in their everyday lives. Respect isn't just something that happens in boardrooms or political halls, May told a group of students at a high school in New York. It starts with you. It starts with how you treat each other in the hallways, in the classrooms, and online. Every small act of kindness and dignity makes a difference. The students were inspired. Many took to social media, posting videos of how they plan to incorporate respect into their daily interactions, sharing their personal stories of how they had experienced disrespect and how they planned to fight against it. As the movement continued to grow, Elon began to realize the true power of this revolution. It wasn't about achieving a specific goal or meeting a set of targets. It was about creating a shift in the collective consciousness, about making respect an inescapable part of the global conversation. But despite the growing success, Elon knew the battle was far from over. The movement had spread far, but there were still forces, both within businesses and governments, that were resistant to change. There would be setbacks. There would be challenges. But Elon and May were prepared. They had just begun to shake the foundations of a society built on privilege and power, and they wouldn't stop until respect was truly a universal right. The respect revolution was no longer just a movement, it was a global awakening. And it was only getting started. As the respect revolution spread across the globe, it faced opposition from unexpected places. Despite the growing wave of support from businesses, governments, and individuals, there were those who viewed the movement as a threat to the status quo. Some saw it as a challenge to their long-held privileges, while others feared the economic impact of the sweeping changes Elon and May were advocating for. Elon had always known that true change came with resistance. He had faced it time and time again in his ventures, whether it was with Tesla, SpaceX, or even his own personal projects. But this was different. This wasn't just about innovating new technology or reshaping industries. This was about changing societal norms, and some weren't ready to let go of the old ways. The first signs of pushback came from within the corporate world. High-ranking executives from several multinational corporations privately expressed concerns about the respect revolution's influence. They worried that implementing the kind of cultural shift Elon and May were advocating for would require a significant overhaul of their operations, something many weren't willing to risk. One evening, as Elon sat in his office at Tesla, he received a phone call from an old acquaintance, Victor Thompson, the CEO of a major luxury retail brand. Victor had been one of the early adopters of sustainability practices in his company, but when it came to the issue of respect and inclusion, his stance was different. "Elon," Victor began, "I've been following the respect revolution, and I'll be honest, I think you're biting off more than you can chew. The way you're framing this, putting respect at the forefront of business, isn't just going to shake things up, it's going to topple the entire structure of how business operates. Elon frowned but remained calm. I don't see it that way, Victor. Respect is the foundation of any successful business. A company that treats its employees, customers, and partners with dignity and fairness is one that will thrive in the long term. What we're doing isn't about dismantling the system, it's about improving it. Victor's voice hardened. That's easy for you to say. You have the resources to push through this, but not everyone has that luxury. Small and mid-sized businesses won't be able to handle the changes you're advocating for. They'll go under. Elon paused, choosing his words carefully. This isn't just about the companies at the top. It's about everyone, the employees, the customers, the people who make up the workforce. If we start treating people with respect at every level, we'll see a ripple effect across the entire economy. The short-term costs are nothing compared to the long-term benefits. Victor's tone grew more impatient. I understand your vision, but there are industries that rely on the old ways of doing business, especially in luxury and high-end retail. You're disrupting more than just business models. You're challenging an entire culture, one that's been in place for generations. Elon's response was firm. And that's exactly why we need to change it. If we don't, we're going to continue down a path of inequality and division. This isn't about luxury, it's about respect for all people. The conversation ended on a tense note, but Elon knew this was only the beginning. The respect revolution wasn't just challenging outdated practices, it was challenging the very power structures that had been in place for decades, if not centuries. And that kind of disruption wasn't going to be welcomed by everyone. The resistance wasn't just limited to the business world. In the political sphere, some leaders were equally reluctant to embrace the movement. While many politicians publicly endorsed the respect revolution, others saw it as a form of social engineering, a movement that would force governments to rethink their policies on everything from taxation to labor laws. In a private meeting at the White House, a group of conservative lawmakers raised their concerns with the president. Respect is important, one of them began, but we can't just expect businesses to implement these cultural shifts without understanding the broader consequences. We're talking about a fundamental restructuring of the economy. It could create massive inflation, lower productivity, and disrupt global markets. Another lawmaker chimed in, and what about the personal responsibility aspect? This movement seems to be implying that everyone, from the top to the bottom, needs to change. But what about accountability? Are we just going to allow people to act however they want under the guise of respect? The president, a pragmatic man who had supported the movement early on, paused for a moment before responding. I agree that there are significant challenges ahead. But we also have to recognize that this isn't just a political issue. It's a moral one. We've spent so long building a system that values profit over people. It's time to rethink that. Despite his support for the movement, the president understood the complexities of balancing progress with stability. The resistance in the political world was growing, but he remained committed to supporting the respect revolution, at least for now. As the respect revolution continued to gain momentum, Elon and May were more determined than ever to press forward. But they knew that the road ahead would be filled with obstacles. The resistance wasn't going to back down easily, and the challenges they faced were going to test their resolve. Elon turned to his trusted team for advice. They had been working tirelessly to implement the respect revolution in businesses and governments around the world, but the pushback was becoming harder to ignore. I've always known that resistance would come, Elon said one evening in a strategy meeting. But we have to find a way to overcome it. We can't let these people stand in the way of what we're trying to achieve. May, sitting next to him, nodded. It's not going to be easy, Elon. But if we're going to succeed, we have to keep our focus. The people who are resisting this change are scared. They're afraid of losing power, losing control. But we can't let fear guide us. Elon looked around the room at his team. This is bigger than us. It's bigger than any company or government. This is about creating a world where respect is the baseline, not the exception. And we're not backing down. May smiled at her son. That's the spirit. And remember, change doesn't happen overnight. We need to keep building support from the ground up. Every story, every example of respect being honored, is a victory. One step at a time. Elon took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the journey ahead. The resistance was strong, but so was the movement. As long as they had their vision, their determination, and the support of the people, there was no obstacle too large to overcome. The respect revolution was just getting started, and Elon knew that the hardest part was still to come. But as he looked at the faces of the people around him, his mother, his team, and the millions of supporters worldwide, he felt more certain than ever that they were on the right path. Change was coming. And no matter how strong the resistance, it would not be stopped. The respect revolution had gained more traction than Elon and May could have ever anticipated. What had started as a single moment of defiance against an unjust incident had snowballed into a global movement that was reshaping industries, politics, and society at large. But with success came new challenges, and not all of them were external. Internally, the respect revolution was evolving into a much larger and more complex initiative than Elon and May had initially envisioned. What had begun as a call for dignity and inclusion had now become an enterprise requiring massive resources, coordination, and delicate diplomacy. Elon was used to handling big projects, but this felt different. It wasn't just about innovation, it was about human lives, human dignity, and the way society operated. One morning, while sipping his coffee at his office at Tesla, Elon received an unexpected call. It was from Rachel Green, his closest advisor in the respect revolution and a longtime friend. She had been working tirelessly behind the scenes, helping coordinate the global expansion of the movement. Rachel's voice sounded urgent, more serious than usual. "Elon, we have a problem," she said. "There's been a significant backlash from several major influencers and corporations in the tech world. Some of the biggest names in Silicon Valley are starting to push back on the respect revolution, claiming it's hindering innovation and creating unnecessary regulations." Elon sighed, rubbing his temples. He had been anticipating this. Silicon Valley was a hub of radical innovation, but it was also home to some of the most competitive and profit-driven companies in the world. Many tech giants were used to operating on their own terms, and the principles of respect that were central to the respect revolution were perceived as a threat to the very nature of their business practices. "I knew this was coming," Elon said, his voice steady but frustrated. "Who's leading the charge?" "It's not just one person," Rachel replied. "It's a coalition of several big tech companies, Google, Amazon, and a few others. They've launched a counter-campaign, calling the respect revolution a disruption of capitalism. They're arguing that the movement's emphasis on fairness and equality will lead to slower growth and innovation." Elon leaned back in his chair, staring out of the window as he processed the information. He had always understood that Silicon Valley was built on the idea of disruption, but this felt different. This wasn't about a new product or service, it was about the values that drove how companies treated people, and that was a much harder issue to tackle. "I need to meet with them," Elon said, his voice taking on a more determined tone. "We can't let them undermine what we're trying to build here." Rachel hesitated for a moment. "I'll arrange the meeting, but you need to be prepared. This won't be easy. These are some of the most powerful people in the world." Later that week, Elon found himself in a sleek, glass-walled conference room in one of Silicon Valley's most iconic office buildings. He was joined by several key members of the Respect Revolution team, as well as May, who had flown in to offer her support. The meeting was tense. On the other side of the table sat a group of high-powered executives, the CEOs of Amazon and Google, along with several prominent investors and influential tech leaders. Elon knew these were the people who shaped the future of technology and business. If they opposed the respect revolution, it could set the movement back by years. The stakes were higher than ever. As the meeting began, the Amazon CEO, a sharp-dressed man in his late 50s, opened the conversation. "Elon, we respect the work you've done. You've certainly stirred up a lot of attention with the respect revolution. But we have some concerns. We believe that respect is important, but the way you're pushing it, it's too restrictive. It's stifling innovation and growth." Elon leaned forward, meeting the man's gaze. "I understand your concerns, but I disagree. Innovation and respect aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, when you create a culture of respect, it drives innovation. People are more motivated, more productive, and more creative when they feel valued. We're not saying innovation should stop. We're saying it should be built on a foundation of respect." The Google CEO, a woman known for her calculated approach, raised an eyebrow. "But what about freedom of choice in the marketplace? What if respect conflicts with a company's ability to push boundaries and take risks? If every company has to abide by your vision of respect, it'll create a system of limitations." May spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "We're not talking about limiting freedom, we're talking about eliminating the abuse of power. Respect isn't a limitation, it's a strength. It's about creating an environment where every person's voice matters, and that leads to stronger, more sustainable innovation. A world where people are valued, not exploited." The room was silent for a moment. The tech CEOs exchanged glances, clearly not used to being challenged in such a way. But Elon knew they were listening. He had seen the power of respect in his own companies, how it had transformed Tesla and SpaceX into not just industry leaders, but environments where people wanted to work. And now, he was asking them to see the bigger picture. "This movement isn't about stifling innovation," Elon continued. "It's about creating a system where innovation works for everyone, not just for the few at the top. If we keep exploiting people for their labor, for their ideas, we won't have a sustainable future. Respect is the new frontier. If we embrace it now, we're not just going to survive the next decade, we're going to shape the future." For a few moments, there was only the sound of breathing in the room as the tech executives considered Elon's words. The tension was palpable. Elon could feel the weight of the conversation bearing down on him. Finally, the Amazon CEO broke the silence. "We'll need to take this back to our boards and our investors. But we're open to finding a middle ground. Maybe there's a way to incorporate respect into our business models without compromising growth." Elon nodded, sensing a crack in their resistance. "That's all we're asking for, dialogue and a willingness to change. We don't need to tear down the system. We just need to rebuild it on better values." As the meeting ended and Elon and his team left the building, he felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. He had made some progress, but the battle was far from over. Silicon Valley was a formidable force, and it wasn't going to roll over easily. "I think we made some headway," May said as they walked down the hallway. "They're not completely on board, but they're listening. That's a start." Elon didn't respond immediately, lost in thought. He knew that the respect revolution was facing its most formidable challenge yet. If he and May were going to succeed in this mission, they would have to convince the world's most powerful tech leaders that respect and progress could coexist. It wasn't going to be easy. But he wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The respect revolution had started with a single moment of defiance in a luxury store, but it was now a movement that was fighting for the soul of global capitalism. Elon Musk wasn't just playing for the future of his companies anymore, he was playing for the future of the world. And he was willing to fight for it. The aftermath of Elon's meeting with the tech giants left him with mixed feelings. On one hand, he had made significant progress. The resistance was softening, and the conversations were shifting from outright rejection to negotiation. On the other hand, the challenges were far from over. Silicon Valley was not a place known for embracing change easily, and the tech industry's influence was vast, stretching across every aspect of modern life. Yet, in the midst of this tension, an unexpected ally emerged. Elon had always believed that the respect revolution wasn't just a call for dignity in the workplace or fairness in business, it was a movement that transcended industries. It was about creating a global culture where respect was foundational to every interaction, no matter the sector or the region. And as the movement expanded, he was starting to realize that it could have a ripple effect on places he hadn't anticipated. One afternoon, as Elon and May were discussing the next steps over lunch, a name they hadn't expected to hear surfaced. It was Mia Thompson, a renowned businesswoman and the CEO of one of the most successful fashion retail brands in the world, Thompson Couture. Her company had built its empire on luxury, exclusivity, and high-end designs. Mia was a pioneer in the fashion industry and had long been an advocate for empowerment and personal expression, but no one had expected her to endorse the respect revolution, especially considering her business was often associated with elitism and exclusivity. Yet, it was Mia who reached out first. "Elon, I've been thinking a lot about what you're doing," Mia said, her voice calm yet determined as she spoke to him over the phone. "You and your mother have started something powerful, and I think I can help. I'd like to discuss how Thompson Couture can become a part of the respect revolution." Elon blinked in surprise. He had never expected a leader in the fashion world to align with the principles of the movement, especially one whose brand had often been criticized for promoting an image of unattainable perfection. "Mia, I'm glad to hear from you," Elon replied, his curiosity piqued. "But, I have to admit, I didn't expect you to want to be involved with the respect revolution. Your brand has always been about exclusivity." Mia let out a soft laugh. "I know, Elon. And that's exactly why I'm reaching out. I've spent years curating a brand that symbolizes luxury, but over time, I've come to realize that we've been excluding people, intentionally or not. I've been watching the changes you and your mother are advocating for, and I see now that luxury shouldn't just be about status, it should be about elevating everyone, equally. Fashion is about self-expression, but it's also about belonging. I think the respect revolution is where we need to go. I want Thompson Couture to lead the charge in showing how fashion can be a vehicle for respect, inclusivity, and empowerment." Elon was stunned. In an industry that thrived on exclusivity and perceived superiority, Mia's words were a refreshing and unexpected shift. Could it be possible that fashion, an industry that had often been a symbol of societal division, could also become a vehicle for change? "All right, let's talk," Elon said, feeling the excitement stir within him. "We need all the allies we can get. But we're going to need more than just words, we need action. How can Thompson Couture help bring this vision to life?" The following week, Elon, May, and a small group of their team flew to New York to meet with Mia in person. The meeting took place at the flagship Thompson Couture boutique, a multi-story temple to fashion that felt as much like an art gallery as it did a store. But as they entered the store, Elon felt the weight of the task ahead. The opulent surroundings felt at odds with the core values of the respect revolution. The whole premise of Thompson Couture was built around exclusivity and perfection, ideas that were increasingly hard to reconcile with the movement's calls for inclusivity and fairness. But Mia was ready for the challenge. "I know what you're thinking," Mia said as they sat down in a private lounge. "This brand has always been about luxury in a very specific way. But I've realized that luxury doesn't have to come at the expense of respect. It's not about making the average person feel less than. It's about celebrating the art of fashion without putting up barriers. People don't need to feel excluded to feel special." Elon nodded. "I agree. The essence of the respect revolution isn't about limiting who can be part of it, it's about ensuring that everyone is treated with dignity, whether they're a customer, an employee, or a designer. Luxury should be accessible in the way we treat people, not just in terms of the price tag on a product." May added, "Luxury and respect aren't contradictions. In fact, true luxury should be about making others feel seen and valued. The status symbols that divide us are the real problem." Mia's face brightened. "Exactly. I want to change how people see luxury. I want Thompson Couture to not just represent high-end fashion but to be a symbol of respect, quality, and inclusivity. We're going to use our platform to elevate voices that have been ignored, especially those from marginalized communities." Elon and May exchanged a look. This was exactly the kind of collaboration they needed, one that would transform an industry from the inside out. The fashion world was a powerful influencer of culture, and Mia's influence could help the respect revolution gain the kind of momentum it needed to move beyond just the tech and business sectors. "We're in," Elon said with a firm nod. "Let's make this work. Let's show the world that luxury doesn't have to be exclusionary. Let's make respect the new standard in fashion." The collaboration between Thompson Couture and the Respect Revolution set the stage for one of the most impactful partnerships in the movement's history. Mia began integrating respect-driven initiatives into her brand, focusing on inclusive marketing, ethical labor practices, and creating a platform for emerging designers from underrepresented communities. But even with this powerful ally on their side, Elon and May knew the fight was far from over. The resistance, both from entrenched industries and political forces, was strong. They had to keep pushing, keep challenging old ideas, and keep fighting for a future where respect wasn't just a buzzword, it was the foundation of how the world worked. The battle for global change was far from won. But with each new ally, each new shift in thinking, they were moving closer to victory. And Elon felt, more than ever, that the tide was turning. The respect revolution wasn't just a movement, it was a wave that couldn't be stopped. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The partnership with Thompson Couture had been a game changer. The respect revolution had gained a surprising ally, one that not only carried immense weight in the fashion industry but also sent a powerful message to other sectors. When Mia Thompson, a leader in luxury fashion, threw her support behind the movement, it sent shockwaves through industries worldwide. Suddenly, the notion of respect wasn't just something found in corporate boardrooms or activist circles, it was on the runway, in the faces of some of the world's most iconic designers and artists. Elon had always believed that true change came from unexpected places. His own life had been shaped by the disruptors, the misfits, and the ones who were often underestimated. Now, as the respect revolution continued to grow, it seemed that the wave of change was catching on in ways he hadn't anticipated. But with this growth came new challenges. The revolution was no longer just a movement, it was becoming a force. And as with any force, it had the power to reshape the world, for better or worse. Weeks after the announcement of the Thompson Couture partnership, Elon and May sat down for their regular brainstorming session at SpaceX headquarters. Elon had been busy with a variety of projects, from his work with Tesla to advancing space travel, but the respect revolution remained his top priority. "Elon, we've had a lot of success in getting the word out, but we need to start thinking about the next phase," May said, looking at him with a mix of concern and determination. "We've shaken up the fashion world, but there's still a lot of resistance, especially in industries like finance and politics. The respect revolution is seen as a challenge to the status quo, and some very powerful people are not happy about it." Elon rubbed his chin, his mind already racing with ideas. He knew that resistance was inevitable, nothing worth changing ever came without pushback. But the movement had gained so much momentum, and the alliances they were forming were too powerful to ignore. "We've made the first move, and now we need to double down," Elon said. "It's not just about fashion or tech anymore. We're going to show the world that respect can thrive in any industry, no matter how entrenched the old ways are. Let's make sure we have some undeniable proof that respect drives success." "Exactly," May agreed. "We need to continue proving that the future of business is built on respect, equality, and inclusion. If we can prove that industries like finance and healthcare can thrive with the same principles, we'll have the leverage to change everything." The breakthrough came sooner than expected. A month later, after a series of meetings with influential investors and CEOs, Elon found himself at the forefront of a new venture, an investment firm dedicated to supporting companies that upheld the values of the Respect Revolution. The firm, named Respect Capital, would be a new kind of financial institution, one that didn't just focus on profits, but on creating long-term value for all stakeholders, employees, customers, communities, and the planet. "Elon, this is genius," said Robert Patterson, one of the lead investors in the new firm, as they sat around a table discussing strategy. "This could revolutionize the way businesses operate. We've always known that putting people first isn't just good ethics, it's good business. But this takes it to the next level." Elon nodded. "We've seen this with Tesla. We've seen it with SpaceX. Treating people with respect and working toward a higher purpose doesn't just generate goodwill, it generates results. The problem is, most financial institutions and big corporations don't prioritize these values. Respect Capital will be the change we need." The firm quickly gained traction, attracting a new generation of entrepreneurs and investors who believed in a future where success wasn't just measured by numbers, but by the quality of relationships and the positive impact on society. As Respect Capital grew, its portfolio reflected the values of the Respect Revolution. It invested in companies that were sustainable, diverse, and dedicated to creating equitable opportunities. But more than that, it showed the world that business could be both profitable and ethical, two ideas that were often considered mutually exclusive. Back in the world of politics, the ripple effect of the Respect Revolution was also being felt. On a chilly autumn morning, May found herself sitting in a Senate committee room, preparing to testify before a panel of lawmakers. The topic of discussion was the growing influence of the movement, and whether policies advocating for respect, fairness, and inclusivity could be implemented across industries. The political climate was tense, with many lawmakers still skeptical of the movement's long-term impact. But May, ever the advocate for change, was ready. She had spent years fighting for women's rights, equality, and dignity, and she knew the importance of standing firm in the face of opposition. "I believe that the Respect Revolution is not just a movement, it's a blueprint for a better future," May said, her voice steady and clear as she addressed the committee. "For too long, we've let greed and power dictate the way people are treated, especially in the workplace. But we are witnessing firsthand how respect leads to a more engaged workforce, more loyal customers, and more sustainable companies. If we want to build a better economy, we need to make respect and fairness a cornerstone of every policy we enact." The room fell silent as lawmakers took in her words. While not all of them were ready to endorse the movement, May's testimony left a lasting impression. For the first time in years, there was a palpable shift in the way policy was being discussed. Respect wasn't just a buzzword, it was a guiding principle for shaping the future of the country. As May left the committee room, she felt a sense of accomplishment, but she knew the battle was far from over. There would be those who fought to keep things as they were, and there would always be resistance to change. But with each conversation, with each new ally, the Respect Revolution was growing stronger. The ripple effect was undeniable. What had started as a single act of defiance in a luxury store had now spread across the globe, reaching industries and governments, shaping conversations in boardrooms and legislative halls. The revolution was no longer just about respect, it was about creating a world where people could thrive together, in harmony, with dignity and equality for all. But as the movement gained momentum, the question remained, how far would it go? And how much would Elon and May be willing to sacrifice to see it succeed? The answers were unclear, but one thing was certain, the Respect Revolution was only just beginning. The impact of the Respect Revolution continued to spread like wildfire. Every week, it seemed like new industries were being swept up in the movement: finance, healthcare, entertainment, education, each one grappling with how to incorporate the values of respect and inclusion into their everyday operations. For Elon and May, the fight was becoming bigger than they had ever imagined. It was becoming clear that the Respect Revolution was more than just a social movement, it was evolving into a global movement, one that was pushing boundaries and challenging societal norms. With each new alliance and every shift in perspective, it felt like they were getting closer to something monumental. But as with any movement, growth often brought challenges. Resistance was still high, particularly from those who stood to lose the most if the status quo changed. Big corporations, political figures, and even members of the media had begun to question the long-term impact of the movement, worried that the world they knew was on the verge of being upended. But Elon and May had never been the type to back down from a challenge. One afternoon, as they sat at a cafe near their office, Elon shared a thought that had been brewing in his mind for weeks. "You know, May," he said, stirring his coffee thoughtfully, "it's amazing how quickly this has grown. But I think we need something even bigger to drive the respect revolution forward. We need to bring in more powerful allies. We need to unite people from all sectors, corporate giants, politicians, activists, scientists, educators, everyone who believes in a better world. The world needs to see that this movement isn't a niche cause. It's the future of everything." May raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What exactly do you have in mind?" "I think it's time for a summit," Elon said, his eyes lighting up with excitement. "A global respect revolution summit. We'll invite leaders from all over the world, people who have the power to influence policy, shape industries, and set global standards. This will be the defining moment where we show that respect isn't just a buzzword. It's the new paradigm." May smiled, impressed by the idea. "A summit, huh? You're right. It's time to take this to the next level. Let's gather the people who can truly make a difference." The wheels of the summit were set in motion immediately. Elon and May's team worked tirelessly to organize an event that would not only bring together the most influential leaders of industry, but also bridge gaps between governments, thought leaders, activists, and everyday citizens. The event was scheduled to take place in New York City, with invitations sent out to some of the most powerful figures in business, politics, and culture. As the weeks passed, the anticipation for the summit grew. The media was buzzing with speculation about who would show up, and what kind of change the event could spark. Would the summit be a historic turning point? Or would it be just another gathering that failed to make any real impact? The day of the summit arrived, and the venue was buzzing with energy. The glass-walled conference hall in downtown Manhattan had been transformed into a space that felt equal parts cutting-edge and welcoming. Large screens displayed the words, "The Future of Respect," in bold letters, while attendees gathered in groups, exchanging ideas and waiting for the event to begin. Elon and May arrived early, walking through the crowd as the excitement built around them. They had spent months curating the guest list, leaders from top tech companies, politicians from around the world, CEOs from the biggest brands, and activists who had long fought for change. Now, they stood on the precipice of something monumental. "This is it," Elon said, looking out over the room. "We're about to make history." May nodded, her face set with determination. "We've come a long way, but we can't let up now. This is the moment we prove that respect can unite us all, no matter our background, our industry, or our position in life." As the summit began, Elon took to the stage, his presence commanding attention. The room fell silent as he addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for being here today," Elon began, his voice steady but filled with passion. "We are here because we believe that the world can be better. We believe that respect, true respect, has the power to transform every aspect of our lives. From the way we do business, to how we interact with one another, to how we create policies that impact generations to come. This summit is about more than just talking. It's about creating change. It's about making respect the foundation of everything we do." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Respect is not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's the bedrock upon which we can build a fairer, more just world. And we are not going to stop until that vision is a reality. As he finished, the room erupted into applause. The energy in the room shifted, from one of curiosity to one of action. People were no longer just listening, they were ready to engage. The summit continued throughout the day, with panel discussions, workshops, and keynote speeches that ranged from the future of AI and sustainable business practices to global human rights initiatives and educational reform. Leaders from around the world shared their insights, each one adding their voice to the growing chorus advocating for respect as a core value. One of the most impactful moments came when Mia Thompson took the stage. The founder of Thompson Couture had long been an advocate for inclusivity in fashion, but her presence at the summit was about more than just her own brand. Mia shared the transformative journey her company had gone through in order to align itself with the respect revolution. "We realized," Mia said, "that luxury cannot exist in a vacuum of exclusion. Luxury is not just about price, it's about human dignity. It's about creating a space where everyone feels valued. And as we've learned, when you embrace respect in your business practices, your customers, your employees, and even your competitors benefit. It's not just about the bottom line, it's about creating a world that works for everyone." Her words resonated with the crowd, and many attendees later cited her speech as one of the key moments of the summit. Mia's decision to support the respect revolution had solidified her reputation as not just a fashion icon, but a leader in the fight for a more equitable world. As the summit drew to a close, Elon and May took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. The event had been a resounding success, with numerous commitments made to integrate the values of respect into industries and governments worldwide. But as the excitement of the summit began to fade, both knew that the real work was just beginning. "The world is watching," May said as they walked out of the hall. "But now, it's up to us to keep the momentum going." Elon nodded. "We've shown them what's possible. Now, we need to make sure it becomes reality. Respect isn't just a movement, it's the future. And we're going to make sure the future looks different." The respect revolution had taken its first step toward becoming a global force, but there was still much to be done. The summit had united people from across the world, but the real challenge would be in turning the ideas into lasting change. As Elon and May prepared for the next chapter, one thing was certain: the journey ahead would not be easy. But with their vision and their unwavering commitment to respect, they knew they were on the right path. The revolution was just beginning. And it was about to change everything. The respect revolution had officially captured the world's attention, and now came the real test: could the movement sustain its momentum? As the days following the summit blurred into weeks, Elon and May found themselves facing increasingly complex challenges. The expectations were high, and the pressure to deliver was mounting. The next phase of the movement would require more than just speeches and big ideas, it would require action. Big, bold action. And Elon knew that to truly lead this revolution, they would need to break through not just with words, but with undeniable, transformative change that would inspire others to follow. It was late one evening when Elon sat at his desk at SpaceX, the hum of the office around him almost soothing in its steadiness. Despite the seemingly calm atmosphere, his mind was racing, trying to balance the various aspects of the revolution. Respect capital was growing fast, yet it was still a challenge to convince traditional corporations to adopt a truly inclusive model. Governments were slowly beginning to take notice, but some leaders were hesitant to embrace policies that could challenge established power structures. The battle for hearts and minds was far from over. May entered the office, her expression thoughtful as she approached him. "I've been thinking," she said, settling into the chair across from him, "we've made an impact, but we need something more tangible. We've proven respect can change how people interact in business and politics. But how do we show the world that it can actually change people's lives in real, measurable ways?" Elon sat back, processing her words. He knew that action was the next logical step. But what action? The summit had been a starting point, an introduction to the idea that respect could be the foundation of a new world. But how could they prove it on the ground, in the real world, in a way that couldn't be ignored? Then, a thought struck him. "What if we create a model city?" he asked, his voice filled with sudden excitement. "A city built entirely on the principles of the respect revolution. A place where we can showcase respect as a core value, where every business, every school, every government institution operates with respect at its core. May blinked in surprise but quickly began to see the potential. A model city. Something that shows the world what a truly respectful society looks like. Exactly, Elon said, his tone now filled with the kind of determination that only came when he was certain of a groundbreaking idea. We've built rockets. We've built cars. Why not a city? We can bring together all the principles we've been talking about, sustainability, inclusivity, equity, and build something that's tangible. A living, breathing example of what the future could look like if respect was the foundation. May leaned forward, her excitement building. You're onto something, Elon. This would be a game changer. It's not just about creating a utopia. It's about showing the world that this isn't just an ideal. This is a new way of life that can work, on a large scale. Elon smiled, his mind already racing with possibilities. We'll need a partner, someone with the infrastructure to make this happen. Maybe a combination of public and private investment. A global collaboration. But I think we can do it. And when it's up and running, it'll be a model for every city in the world to follow. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Elon and May worked tirelessly to develop the concept for the model city. They called it Respect City, a place where every aspect of life was rooted in the principles of equality, fairness, and respect. Elon reached out to several government leaders to pitch the idea, and he also began contacting key figures in urban development, sustainability, and technology. Together, they would create a blueprint for a city that didn't just talk about change but embodied it every day. Elon's team began laying the groundwork, designing a city that would be completely carbon neutral, with green spaces, renewable energy, and sustainable architecture. The infrastructure would be built with inclusivity in mind, from public transportation systems that served everyone equally to schools that embraced diverse cultures and backgrounds. But the real challenge wasn't going to be in the design, it was going to be in how to bring it to life. Elon knew that getting a project of this scale off the ground would require more than just funding and good intentions. It would require collaboration from governments, businesses, and communities around the world. And even with the Respect Revolution's growing influence, convincing everyone to come together for such an ambitious project wouldn't be easy. One morning, Elon and May sat at a conference table with representatives from the United Nations, government officials, and various NGOs. They had invited the most influential leaders in urban development to discuss the Respect City project. The atmosphere was tense, everyone in the room could see the potential of the project, but they were also acutely aware of the risks. What if it didn't work? What if they were overestimating the ability of the world to change? As Elon outlined the vision for the city, how it would integrate cutting-edge technology with the most progressive social policies, there was a moment of hesitation. The room was filled with skepticism. What's the long-term viability of something like this? Asked a representative from a major urban development firm. Cities are complex ecosystems. You're talking about changing not just infrastructure, but human behavior. Elon looked the man squarely in the eye. That's exactly the point. If we can prove that a city built on respect can thrive, economically, socially, and environmentally, then we've proven that a new world is possible. It's not just about the buildings. It's about the way people live together. The room was silent for a moment, before another participant, an architect specializing in sustainable cities, spoke up. I'm willing to support this vision. It's audacious. It's risky. But it could be the blueprint for the future. A real-world example of what we all aspire to. Elon smiled, knowing that it wasn't just about creating a city, it was about creating a symbol, a beacon of what the world could be. A place where respect wasn't just an ideal but a way of life. Days turned into weeks, and Respect City slowly began to take shape. The first investors were secured, and architectural plans were drawn up. But while the logistics were in motion, the challenges were only beginning. Governments had to be persuaded to commit land and resources, private companies needed to contribute both capital and expertise, and the community needed to be on board with the vision. As Elon and May worked tirelessly to bring their dream to life, they knew that the success of Respect City would not only change the landscape of urban development, it would be the final proof that the Respect Revolution was real, and that it could transform the world. But with every challenge, Elon and May grew more determined. This wasn't just a project for them, it was the future of humanity. And they were going to make sure it succeeded, no matter the obstacles. As the construction of Respect City began, it marked the dawn of a new chapter in the Respect Revolution. This was the moment when their ideals were no longer just ideas, they were becoming a reality. The world would be watching. And Elon Musk, May Musk, and the Respect Revolution were ready to show them what the future could look like. The future was now. As the construction of Respect City commenced, Elon and May found themselves at the center of an unprecedented movement, with the eyes of the world fixed firmly upon them. The groundbreaking ceremony, held in the heart of the land that would soon become the world's first city built entirely on the principles of respect, was a media spectacle of immense proportions. Elon and May stood side by side at the podium, surrounded by reporters, politicians, architects, and environmental activists, all eagerly awaiting their words. It was a momentous occasion. What had once been a bold, almost unimaginable idea was now becoming a reality. The land where Respect City would rise was raw and untouched, the future yet to be shaped. As Elon gazed at the empty landscape, a sense of awe swept over him. This wasn't just a city. This was a blueprint for a new world. May, standing beside him, shared a similar feeling. It was surreal. A few months ago, they had been fighting for respect and inclusion in a world that seemed too entrenched in its old ways. Now, here they were, making history. Elon stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with passion. Today, we begin the creation of something that has never been done before. This city will be a place where respect isn't just an ideal, it's a way of life. Every policy, every building, every interaction here will be rooted in the belief that respect for each other, for our planet, and for future generations is the foundation upon which everything else is built. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the crowd. This is the beginning of a new world. A world where inclusivity, sustainability, and equality are not just goals but realities. We're not just dreaming of change, we're building it. Together. The crowd erupted in applause, but for Elon and May, the applause felt distant. They knew that the hard work was only just beginning. In the days that followed the groundbreaking ceremony, construction began in earnest. Excavators and cranes moved in to prepare the land, and the first outlines of Respect City began to take shape. The city would feature sustainable buildings made from locally sourced materials, green spaces that encouraged community interaction, and transportation systems that were both efficient and equitable. Solar panels would be incorporated into every building, and the city would have a zero-carbon footprint, one of the boldest goals of all. For May, the focus was on the people. She believed that respect wasn't just about policies and infrastructure, it was about creating a culture of inclusivity. She worked closely with community leaders, educators, and social advocates to ensure that Respect City would be a place where people from all walks of life could thrive. The real test, May said to Elon one evening, will be how we ensure that people feel valued, not just in the workplace or in school, but in their daily lives. Respect is about more than just laws, it's about the way people are treated in every interaction. Elon nodded thoughtfully. You're right. It's not enough to just build a city. We need to create a culture where every person, regardless of background, ethnicity, gender, or socioeconomic status, feels like they belong. The first phase of the city's construction was focused on creating the foundational infrastructure, roads, water systems, power grids, and, of course, the first batch of eco-friendly buildings. But as the physical space of Respect City began to take shape, the pair started thinking about the more intangible aspects of their vision, how to cultivate respect in every corner of the city. They decided to establish a series of community-driven initiatives. One of the first was the Respect Council, a body made up of representatives from various sectors of society, including business, education, healthcare, and local activism. The council would be responsible for ensuring that the city's policies reflected the values of respect, fairness, and inclusivity. We need to make sure that we're always looking for new ways to include voices that have traditionally been marginalized, May said. We don't want to just say we're inclusive, we need to show it in everything we do. Elon agreed. It's about setting a precedent. If Respect City can prove that a society built on respect can thrive, it will become the model for the entire world. While the construction and planning efforts moved forward, Elon and May faced constant scrutiny. There were critics from every corner. Some people questioned the feasibility of building a sustainable city on such a large scale, while others criticized the project as overly idealistic. The mainstream media was particularly skeptical, often running articles that questioned whether it was possible to build a city that truly embodied respect in every aspect. But Elon and May had never been deterred by public opinion. Their commitment to the vision was stronger than ever. They knew that the idea of Respect City would be polarizing, it was a radical departure from the status quo. And that's exactly why they believed it was necessary. One evening, as they sat at a private dinner with the project's lead architect, Michael Stone, Elon shared his thoughts on the resistance they were facing. I get it, Elon said, swirling his drink in thought. People are afraid of change. But I'm starting to wonder if we're not going far enough. Maybe we need to think bigger. We need to show people that Respect City isn't just a city. It's a movement. Michael leaned forward, intrigued. How do you mean? I'm thinking we should create a series of global demonstrations, small-scale versions of Respect City, in different parts of the world. We can take the core principles of respect and put them into practice in communities across different cultures. That way, we can show the world that this is not just one city, but the beginning of a global shift. May smiled at Elon's idea. I like that. A global rollout. It's ambitious, but it could work. We're not just building a city, we're building a movement. And so, the next phase of the Respect Revolution began. Elon and May began working with urban planners, engineers, and local governments across the globe to create smaller, respect zones, in cities around the world. These zones would feature pilot programs, where the principles of respect, sustainability, equity, inclusivity, would be tested in real-world environments. By taking the vision of Respect City global, they hoped to prove that the movement was not just a localized effort but a worldwide shift in how people lived, worked, and interacted. The first Respect Zone was launched in a small town in the Netherlands, known for its commitment to sustainability. The local government had already been working on integrating green spaces and sustainable living practices into their community, so the pilot program was a natural fit. Elon and May traveled to the town for the launch, which was celebrated by community members from every background. The streets were filled with people from all walks of life, eagerly anticipating what the project would bring. As they stood together at the opening ceremony, Elon looked out at the crowd and felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. This was the beginning of something much bigger than a city. This was the start of a global revolution, a revolution built on respect. The Respect Revolution was no longer just an idea. It was becoming a reality, and with each new step, it was growing stronger. The world was watching. And the ripple effect of Respect City was just beginning. As the Respect Zones began to take root in various cities around the world, the concept of Respect City started to spread like wildfire. What was once a bold idea held by a few now resonated with communities everywhere. From the cobbled streets of Europe to the bustling cities of Asia, the Respect Revolution was no longer a distant vision, it was a palpable movement. Elon and May could feel the growing energy, but they also knew that this global shift would not be easy. It was going to take more than just infrastructure, it was going to take a change in mindset. One crisp morning in Singapore, Elon and May stood in front of a packed auditorium at the Global Sustainability Summit. The air was charged with anticipation. The summit was a gathering of the world's most influential leaders in business, politics, and technology, all there to discuss the future of our planet. This year, however, the conversation had taken a new direction. Instead of focusing solely on climate change or technological advancements, there was a new question on everyone's mind: what does a truly respectful society look like, and how can we make it a reality? Elon stood at the podium, the spotlight shining brightly as he gazed out at the crowd. The energy in the room was palpable, and he could feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't just another speech, it was a call to action. I'm here today to talk about something we all know the world desperately needs: respect, Elon began, his voice resonating with conviction. Respect for our planet. Respect for each other. And respect for future generations. We've spent decades, even centuries, focused on progress, but without respect at the core, that progress is hollow. The room fell silent. Elon's words were hitting home. We're building more than cities, he continued. We're building the future. We've shown that a city rooted in respect can work. And now, we have to prove that this respect can extend beyond one city, one country, one community. It has to be global. If we want the world to thrive, it's time to show that respect is the glue that binds it all together. The crowd erupted into applause, but Elon wasn't done. Today, I'm challenging each of you to take a step. Don't just look at Respect City as a model for urban development. Look at it as a model for the way we live together as a global community. We have the power to change the world, and it starts with each of us. Let's make respect the foundation of everything we do: business, government, education, even the way we treat the environment. May joined him on stage, and the two of them exchanged a look that spoke volumes. This was no longer just their dream. It was a global dream, and the world was starting to believe. In the months that followed, the global response to the respect zones was overwhelmingly positive. Cities in South America, Africa, and the Middle East began implementing their own versions of respect zones. In each new location, there were challenges, cultural differences, economic struggles, political barriers, but there were also triumphs. In São Paulo, Brazil, a respect zone was launched in a marginalized neighborhood that had long struggled with poverty and inequality. The local government and community leaders worked together to create a space where economic opportunities were available to everyone, regardless of their background. The focus was on creating equitable access to education, healthcare, and jobs, all while promoting a culture of respect and inclusivity. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Within months, the area had become a thriving hub of innovation and community collaboration. Local businesses flourished, and the quality of life improved drastically for residents. And more importantly, the sense of unity and respect that permeated the neighborhood was palpable. Meanwhile, in Nairobi, Kenya, a respect zone was launched to focus on sustainability and environmental justice. The community came together to build urban gardens, create sustainable energy solutions, and advocate for the preservation of local ecosystems. What had once been a city grappling with environmental degradation was now a shining example of how a society could thrive when it placed respect for nature at the center of its values. As Respect City continued to grow and expand, Elon and May faced the ever-present challenge of scaling the movement while maintaining its integrity. They knew that the more successful the project became, the more it would attract opposition. But their resolve was unwavering. They were committed to the vision, and they believed that the movement had the power to shift not only the way cities were built but the way humanity interacted with one another and with the planet. A pivotal moment came during the United Nations General Assembly, when the world's leaders gathered to discuss global issues ranging from poverty to climate change. Elon and May were invited to speak, and they knew this was the perfect opportunity to take their message to the global stage. The assembly hall was packed. World leaders sat in plush seats, their attention focused on the speakers at the podium. As Elon and May approached the stage, the room went quiet. They were about to present Respect City as not just a vision, but a tangible path forward for the world. Elon spoke first. We are at a crossroads in human history. The decisions we make today will determine the future of generations to come. We've seen the damage that can be done when respect for each other and the planet is absent. We've witnessed inequality, environmental destruction, and the disintegration of social fabric. But there is another way. A way forward that is based on respect for all people, all cultures, and all living things. May stepped forward, her voice warm and steady. Respect isn't just about agreeing on everything. It's about understanding that everyone's voice matters. It's about listening, collaborating, and finding solutions that benefit all. Respect City is a living example of what happens when we put these principles into practice. And we believe that it can be a model for the future, not just in one city, but for the entire world. The room was silent for a moment before the applause erupted. World leaders began to rise to their feet, and the energy in the room shifted. For the first time in a long time, there was a sense of collective hope, a feeling that change was not only possible, but within reach. As the applause died down, a number of leaders approached Elon and May to express their support for the Respect Revolution. Some spoke of how they had already seen the impact of the respect zones in their own countries, and how they were eager to implement similar initiatives. The momentum was undeniable. What had started as a small idea was now a global movement, and its impact was beginning to reverberate across borders. But even as the Respect Revolution gained traction, Elon and May knew that the hardest work was still ahead. The true challenge would be in sustaining this momentum, in turning individual pockets of change into a global paradigm shift. The road would be long, and the obstacles many. But they were more determined than ever. Back at their headquarters in Respect City, Elon and May sat together, reflecting on the progress they had made. I never imagined we'd be here so soon, May said, her voice filled with awe. The world is listening. Elon nodded, a quiet intensity in his eyes. But we've only just begun. This isn't just about building a city. It's about reshaping society. Changing the way we think about each other. Changing the way we live. And with that, they both knew that the journey ahead would be just as challenging as it was exciting. But they were ready. The world had changed. And now, they were leading the charge to ensure that it would never go back to the way it was before. The revolution was global, and it was just getting started. As the Respect Revolution continued to grow, not everyone was enamored by the idea of a world built on respect. While Elon and May were hailed as visionaries by many, there were also voices of opposition that grew louder with each passing day. Some argued that the idea was too idealistic, that respect couldn't be legislated, and that such a grand vision would eventually falter under the weight of its own ambition. Elon and May had prepared for the criticism. They knew the road to change would be fraught with challenges. But nothing could quite prepare them for the intensity of the opposition they began to face. It started with whispers, a few critics, mostly from political and economic circles, questioning the feasibility of Respect City. They called it utopian, naive, and unrealistic. But soon, those whispers turned into full-blown campaigns. Media outlets that had once supported the idea began to publish articles that questioned the project's sustainability. They focused on the technical challenges of building a city from the ground up, the economic costs, and the unintended consequences of implementing such a radical approach. But the most vocal opposition came from powerful business leaders who saw the Respect Revolution as a threat to their profits. They feared that a global push for sustainability, equity, and inclusion would force them to change their long-standing business models and practices. Respect, at its core, challenges everything we know about success, said Richard Hayward, the CEO of a global conglomerate, in an op-ed published by a major news outlet. While we all want to do good, we also have to face reality. The economy depends on competition, individualism, and growth. A world based solely on respect would undermine the very foundations that make capitalism work. The respect revolution had hit a wall, or so it seemed. As these voices of opposition gained traction, Elon and May found themselves facing a choice: to scale back their vision and appease critics, or to double down and push forward, despite the pushback. One evening, as they sat in their office overlooking the construction site of Respect City, Elon broke the silence. "They're trying to break us down, May. These attacks are getting more personal, more aggressive. It's like they see us as a threat to everything they've built." May, ever the optimist, looked at him with determination. "They're scared, Elon. When people are scared, they fight the hardest. But it's not the fight we're after, it's the change. We're not going to let them stop us. Respect is a force stronger than any corporation, stronger than any politician. If we keep doing what we're doing, the world will catch up." Elon took a deep breath, considering her words. The pressure was mounting, but May was right. This was bigger than just their city, it was about changing the world. They couldn't back down now. As the criticism intensified, so did their resolve. Elon and May knew that the respect revolution wasn't just about building cities or promoting sustainable practices, it was about challenging the very systems of power that had shaped society for generations. But they were also aware that they couldn't change everything overnight. The key was in finding allies and amplifying their voices. And that's exactly what they did. During a pivotal moment at a global conference in Paris, the pair gathered a coalition of like-minded leaders, activists, and entrepreneurs from all over the world. It was a diverse group, people who had been working tirelessly to push for change in their own fields. There were environmentalists, social justice advocates, and technologists, all with a shared belief in the power of respect as the cornerstone for a better future. The conference was meant to address the world's biggest challenges: climate change, inequality, poverty, and how to tackle them together. As Elon and May took the stage, they knew this was their chance to shift the narrative. "Elon and I stand before you today, not as individuals, but as representatives of a movement," May began, her voice steady and strong. "A movement that recognizes the fundamental truth that respect is the foundation of everything we do, whether we're tackling the climate crisis, fighting for social justice, or innovating for the future. We've seen the power of respect in action. It's changing lives in respect zones all around the world." Elon followed, his voice firm with conviction. "We know that change isn't easy. We know that the world doesn't turn on a dime. But we've also seen that when we respect each other and the planet, when we place empathy and equality at the heart of everything we do, we can solve problems that have stumped us for decades." The room erupted into applause, but Elon and May could see it in the faces of their allies. They weren't just clapping because it was the right thing to do. They were clapping because they, too, understood the power of the respect revolution. The world was listening. And they were beginning to fight back against the forces of opposition. Back at Respect City, the construction was well underway, but so was the challenge of managing the narrative. Elon and May faced not only the pressure of delivering on their promises but also the uphill battle of countering the narratives that painted their vision as unattainable. Social media campaigns, news reports, and political debates were raging, with critics often using Respect City as the poster child for everything they thought was wrong with the future. It was at this point that Elon decided it was time to take a more proactive approach. Instead of retreating from the criticism, they would confront it head-on. Elon appeared on a major talk show, The Future Now, known for its tough interviews and controversial guests. The host, Matt Cole, was known for his sharp questions, especially when it came to ideas that challenged the status quo. "Welcome to the show, Elon," Matt began. "You've been quite the disruptor lately. But there's one thing that has people scratching their heads: this idea that respect can be the foundation of a global society. You've faced a lot of criticism. Business leaders are calling your vision unrealistic. Some say it's a distraction. What's your response?" Elon didn't hesitate. "Respect isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a must-have. Without respect, everything else falls apart. Look at the world around us. Inequality is rampant. The environment is collapsing. Our political systems are more divided than ever. This is the moment to make a fundamental shift. A shift towards empathy, inclusivity, and sustainability. That's not idealism, that's necessity. The audience sat in stunned silence. Matt pressed further, but you're talking about changing the way people think. Changing the very fabric of society. That's not something that can happen overnight. It's a massive undertaking. And not everyone's on board. Isn't that risky? Elon's response was clear: the risk is not doing anything. The world is at a tipping point. We don't have the luxury of waiting. If we want to avoid disaster, whether environmental, social, or political, we need a new approach. We need a global culture of respect. We can't afford to go back to business as usual. The interview aired to millions of viewers, and for the first time, Elon's words resonated deeply with people around the world. While the critics still held strong, there was a growing chorus of support from unexpected quarters, from everyday citizens, young activists, and even corporations looking to redefine their roles in society. But there was still work to be done. The respect revolution had gained significant ground, but it was far from over. Elon and May knew that the journey would be long, but they were more determined than ever to see it through. The forces of opposition had made their voices heard, but the forces of change were only growing louder. The revolution was far from finished. And Elon and May were ready for whatever came next. The battle for the respect revolution was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. The growing opposition from influential political figures, corporate leaders, and media outlets had given Elon and May an urgent reminder that changing the world wasn't just about vision, it was about resilience, strategy, and unyielding persistence. But in the face of resistance, they found new opportunities for growth. The tide was slowly shifting, and although the criticism was still loud, the momentum of the revolution was undeniable. Around the world, ordinary people, workers, parents, students, and activists, were increasingly embracing the idea that respect could change society. They weren't just talking about it, they were living it. And as the respect zone spread, their positive effects began to transcend borders, sparking new conversations in boardrooms, classrooms, and living rooms everywhere. It all began with a surprise invitation from a global tech conference in Tokyo. The organizers wanted Elon and May to speak on the impact of respect zones in fostering innovation and sustainable growth. The event was expected to host leaders in artificial intelligence, green energy, and the future of global infrastructure. Elon saw this as an opportunity to not only advocate for Respect City but to demonstrate how its principles could be applied in tech and business, where innovation often clashed with ethical concerns. As they boarded the plane to Japan, May looked out the window, her mind swirling with questions. Do you think this is the moment? I mean, it feels like we've reached a tipping point. The world is starting to listen. Elon turned to her, his eyes reflecting the weight of their journey. I think it's more than that, May. It's about a shift in consciousness. People are beginning to realize that if we don't prioritize respect in everything we do, whether it's tech, business, or the environment, we're going to lose what matters most. But it's a fight. We need to be strategic. May smiled softly. We've been strategic from the start. This isn't just about building a city, it's about changing the way the world operates. And we're not backing down. The conference in Tokyo was unlike anything Elon and May had attended before. The venue was a futuristic marvel, an enormous structure of glass and steel, housing the most brilliant minds in technology. When Elon and May took the stage, they were met with a standing ovation. It was a moment they had worked tirelessly for, the chance to speak directly to the world's innovators, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about how respect could transform not just cities, but entire industries. Elon and May, thank you for joining us today, said the conference moderator. We've heard much about your Respect City and how it's inspiring a global movement. But what I think people really want to know is, can this movement scale? Can it integrate into the very systems that we've built our societies on? Elon took a deep breath, sensing the significance of the moment. What we've realized is that the principles of Respect City are scalable, not just in the physical infrastructure of a city, but in the very culture that drives technological development. We're no longer in an age where we can afford to ignore the ethical implications of what we create. Respect is about more than just kindness, it's about ensuring that we build technology that benefits all people, not just the few, and that we respect the ecosystems we depend on. The crowd was silent, but their eyes were locked on Elon. May added, it's about creating a new kind of economy, one that values sustainability, equity, and shared success. The old ways of thinking, where profits were the ultimate goal, have created the inequality and environmental damage we see today. But we're at a crossroads. We have the chance to rewrite the rules. The room buzzed with energy. Some attendees nodded in agreement, while others were clearly skeptical. The reality of what they were proposing was still too radical for many. But as Elon and May continued to share examples of how respect zones had successfully shifted public attitudes, economies, and even the relationship between businesses and communities, they saw the beginnings of a new mindset taking hold. Later that evening, as they mingled with other conference participants, one young entrepreneur approached Elon and May. "I've been working on a project in renewable energy," she said hesitantly, "but I've struggled with how to balance innovation with sustainability. Your message about respect really resonates with me. How do we make sure that respect isn't just a buzzword, but something we integrate into every decision we make?" Elon smiled, recognizing the sincerity in her voice. "It starts with a mindset shift. You don't build something based on what's convenient, you build it based on what's necessary. It's about asking yourself, how can this project, this technology, help lift people up? How can it help protect the environment and support future generations?" The young woman nodded thoughtfully. "It's going to take time to shift entire industries. But I'm willing to try." Elon's face softened. That's how change begins, one person, one idea at a time. As the conference came to a close, Elon and May knew that they had just made an impact. The seeds of the respect revolution were beginning to sprout in unexpected places. It was clear that the conversation about respect was now happening not just in cities and communities, but in the boardrooms and tech hubs where the future of the world was being shaped. But the opposition was still there. And the critics weren't backing down either. Back in Respect City, Elon and May faced their next challenge. In the midst of the global support, powerful political and corporate entities were quietly working behind the scenes to undermine their efforts. The backlash had grown, and now it was moving into the political arena. Politicians, especially those with ties to the industries that had the most to lose from the respect revolution, were beginning to target Respect City in new and aggressive ways. Legislation in several countries was being introduced to limit the reach of respect zones. There were talks of curbing the tax incentives for businesses involved in the movement. There were rumors of new policies that would specifically target the companies backing Respect City, accusing them of undermining the free market. But Elon and May were undeterred. They had faced obstacles before, and they knew this was just another chapter in the revolution. "We can't let them control the narrative," Elon said one evening, as they sat in their office, the lights of Respect City twinkling in the distance. "We have to double down on our message and show the world why this is the future." May agreed. "It's not just about building a city. It's about proving that respect is the key to solving the world's most pressing problems. We have to show the politicians and corporations that this is a movement of the people. And it's unstoppable." As they prepared for the next phase of the revolution, Elon and May understood that the journey ahead would require more than just bold ideas and global support. It would require persistence, courage, and the willingness to fight for what they believed in, no matter the obstacles. The battle was far from over. But the tide was shifting, and they were ready to ride the wave to victory. The battle for respect and change had never been more intense. As Elon and May's message began to resonate globally, it simultaneously attracted increasing opposition from powerful forces who were intent on maintaining the status quo. The Respect Revolution was becoming a political battlefield. Media outlets that had once championed the project now questioned its feasibility, and powerful lobby groups pushed back, trying to slow down the movement with every tool at their disposal. But despite the backlash, something extraordinary was happening. The world was waking up. It began with the youth. A new generation, having grown up watching the world's problems, climate change, inequality, social injustice, spiral out of control, was beginning to take notice. They didn't just accept the world the way it was, they wanted to rewrite the rules. They saw the Respect Revolution not as a vague utopia, but as the only path to survival in a world that had been teetering on the edge for far too long. One evening, as Elon and May prepared for a press event in Los Angeles, a young woman named Maria, a climate activist and tech entrepreneur, approached them backstage. She was holding a tablet, displaying a petition that had gone viral, gathering millions of signatures worldwide, from students, young professionals, and even parents who felt the impact of the climate crisis on their children's future. "I've been following your work," Maria said, her voice brimming with passion. "This petition, it's not just for environmental change. It's for a complete cultural shift, a shift towards respect for each other, for the planet, for future generations. And we need Respect City as a model. We need it now." Elon and May exchanged a look, recognizing the magnitude of what Maria was saying. "Elon, May," Maria continued, "we've been told for decades that change was too hard, too impossible, too out of reach. But we're proving them wrong. We're organizing, we're building a new economy, one based on respect, sustainability, and equality. We're not asking for permission. We're taking action." Elon, always the pragmatist, could see that this movement was no longer just an ideal, it was becoming a powerful force, powered by the people. He could see the fire in Maria's eyes, the same fire that had ignited their own journey. This was the turning point they had been waiting for. Later that day, during the press event, the conversation took a dramatic turn. The moderator had asked Elon about the criticisms of the Respect Revolution and the accusations that it was too idealistic. Instead of shrinking back, Elon stood firm. "It's been said that progress comes with resistance," he began, "but the truth is, the resistance we face now isn't just about ideology. It's about people who are comfortable in a broken system. And that's what we're changing. We're not just creating a new way of thinking, we're creating a new way of living. The world has already given us the blueprint, we just need the courage to follow it." May stepped forward, adding, "Respect isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. We've seen what happens when we don't prioritize it: inequality, war, environmental collapse. It's time to build a world that reflects what we all know is right. We don't need anyone's permission. We need action." The crowd erupted into applause. For the first time, they were speaking not just to the media, but directly to the people. The press was beginning to cover the Respect Revolution differently. They weren't just reporting on Elon and May as the leaders of an idealistic project, they were now seeing them as the faces of a movement that was sweeping across the globe, led by a younger generation who had no intention of waiting for change, they were creating it themselves. As they left the stage, the weight of the moment was not lost on them. This was it. The turning point. Back at the office in Respect City, the energy shifted. What had once been a bold idea now felt like an unstoppable force. Elon and May had always believed in the power of respect as a guiding principle, but the growing global momentum had begun to shift the narrative. The world was on the brink of something massive, and the Respect Revolution was at the center of it. But the revolution's growing success brought with it a new challenge: the corporate resistance was beginning to take more direct action. A few weeks later, a key figure in the business world, Charles Winters, CEO of a global energy conglomerate, publicly denounced the Respect Revolution during a high-profile speech at the World Economic Forum. "What we're witnessing with Respect City in this so-called revolution is a dangerous shift in power," Winters declared. Respect for all may sound good on paper, but it's not sustainable. This is an attempt to disrupt the very foundations of our economy, and it cannot stand. The attack sent shockwaves through the media. Winters, a known figure in the industry, was a formidable opponent. His corporation had deep ties to governments, and his influence was undeniable. The backlash against Elon and May grew even louder. As the criticism mounted, Elon and May knew that the opposition wasn't just about ideas, it was about a deeply entrenched system fighting to protect its interests. They had anticipated this battle, but it was now becoming more personal. The resistance was no longer just ideological, it was rooted in the preservation of power, money, and control. Still, they had a plan. The Respect Revolution wasn't just about opposition, it was about proving that the people, ordinary citizens, held the true power. And in this battle, the people were speaking louder than ever. In response to Winter's attacks, May addressed a global rally in New York City, with millions tuning in online. This revolution isn't about destroying systems, she said, her voice echoing through the streets. It's about transforming them. We believe in capitalism with a conscience. We believe in business that respects the environment and values people over profits. And we're proving that it's possible to make money while making the world a better place. The choice is simple: do we continue down a path of destruction, or do we build a future where respect for one another and the planet is at the core of everything we do? The crowd roared in agreement. Around the world, people were rallying behind the cause, demanding change, pushing for the Respect Revolution to continue. As the rally ended, Elon and May stood at the front, knowing that this was just the beginning. The tide had turned. The revolution was no longer just an idea, it was a movement led by the people, powered by the belief that a world built on respect was not only possible, it was necessary. They knew the road ahead would be hard. The battle for respect was never going to be easy. But with the support of millions, they were more determined than ever to see this revolution through to the end. They had started this journey believing that change was possible. Now, they knew it was inevitable. The Respect Revolution had reached its turning point, and there was no going back. As the world watched, the Respect Revolution took its next giant step forward. It had been months since the turning point in New York City, and the ripples of change were now unmistakable. The growing wave of support was undeniable, but so was the resistance. Elon and May knew they were fighting an uphill battle, but the energy from their supporters, the thousands, millions of voices rising in unison, had given them the strength to keep pushing forward. The fight, however, had never been more personal. The backlash from corporate giants, including Charles Winters, had intensified. What had once been an ideological debate about respect and ethics was now a full-fledged war. The opposition wasn't just fighting against Respect City, they were fighting against a shift in the very fabric of society, one that threatened their power and their profits. But Elon and May had something they could always rely on, their unwavering belief in the cause. And they had each other. One late evening, after a particularly grueling meeting with some of their closest allies, Elon and May walked along the streets of Respect City, their reflections shimmering in the clean, almost ethereal glass surfaces of the buildings around them. The city, which had once seemed like an idealistic dream, now stood as a powerful testament to what was possible when respect was at the heart of everything. "This is more than just a city," May said, her voice soft, yet filled with determination. "It's a symbol. Every building, every park, every street, it's proof that respect isn't just an idea. It's a way of life." Elon nodded, but his mind was preoccupied with something heavier. The challenges ahead were immense. Corporate entities had been trying to stifle Respect City's growth through legal pressure and negative media campaigns, while certain political figures were pushing back against it with all their might. "They'll never stop," Elon muttered, a trace of frustration in his voice. "It's clear they want us to fail. But I refuse to let them win. Not after all the people who have put their faith in us. We're past the point of no return." May placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You know, for the longest time, I thought the fight was about us against them. But now, I realize it's about something bigger. It's about the future we want to leave for our kids. The kind of world we want them to grow up in. And for them, it's worth every fight. The next day, Elon took a call that would set the course for the coming months. It was from a global coalition of young leaders who had been inspired by Respect City and were now organizing for a global march, a protest that would stretch from New York City to Tokyo, passing through cities across the world. Their goal? To demand a new world order based on respect, justice, and sustainability. Elon's heart raced. This was the kind of global movement they needed to make the revolution undeniable. "Let's do it," Elon said, his voice resolute. "We'll join them. This march will be a turning point. A statement to the world." As the global march kicked off, it quickly became clear that it wasn't just a protest, it was a movement. People from all walks of life, all corners of the world, were coming together. They marched not just for Respect City, but for a future where equality, sustainability, and fairness were prioritized. They marched for respect in every form, respect for the planet, for workers, for human rights, for future generations. Elon and May joined the march in Los Angeles, standing alongside thousands of people who believed in the cause. The air was electric with hope. The streets were filled with banners, chants, and faces full of purpose. There was a palpable sense that history was being made. But there were still those who tried to undermine it. The media, still under the influence of corporate interests, reported on the march with an undertone of doubt. Phrases like "idealistic chaos" and "a movement bound to fail" dominated the headlines. But the people didn't listen to the media anymore. They knew what they were fighting for. Then, as the march reached its peak in Tokyo, the opposition tried one final, desperate attempt to sabotage the movement. At a crucial point during the event, a coordinated attack from cybercriminals hit the global communications network, sending fake news reports across the world. They spread false rumors about the Respect Revolution, claiming that it was nothing more than a ploy to destabilize global economies. The world's stock markets took a dive, and chaos erupted online. The media seized the opportunity to amplify the crisis, and the movement faced its biggest test yet. In a press conference held just hours after the attack, Elon and May addressed the situation head-on. "This is exactly what we were preparing for," Elon said, his voice calm yet firm. "The powers that want to keep the status quo fear the change we are bringing. They will stop at nothing to disrupt it. But we are not backing down. We will not be silenced. The Respect Revolution is not a fad. It is a movement led by the people, and nothing, no attack, no false narrative, can stop us." May added, her gaze steady, "This isn't just about us. This is about all of us. This is about the world we want to leave behind. A world where respect, sustainability, and equality are not just ideals but the foundation of everything we do. And we will keep fighting for it, no matter what." The press conference was a turning point. The public response was overwhelming. People began to see the manipulation for what it was. The support for the Respect Revolution skyrocketed. In cities across the globe, more marches, rallies, and protests were organized. What had begun as a ripple of change was now an unstoppable wave. But as the momentum built, the world was faced with an unexpected twist. While the revolution was gaining ground, new allies emerged, unexpected players who were not only endorsing Respect City but investing in it. World leaders, business tycoons, environmental groups, and even tech moguls who had initially stayed on the sidelines began to speak up. One of the most surprising endorsements came from an old rival, Charles Winters. After facing pressure from a coalition of young leaders and being publicly outed for his previous attempts to sabotage the movement, Winters had a change of heart. At a press event broadcast live worldwide, he issued a public apology. "I have fought against this revolution for too long," he said, his voice grave. "But I see now that I was wrong. Respect is the only way forward. If we want to save our planet, our people, and our future, we need to change the way we do business. I'm proud to announce my support for Respect City and the principles behind it." The crowd went silent, then erupted into applause. It was a dramatic shift, a sign that the Respect Revolution was no longer just an ideal, it was a force that could not be ignored. As the revolution reached new heights, Elon and May stood tall, knowing they had come further than they ever imagined. The movement had weathered every storm, and now, with the world at their feet, they were closer than ever to realizing their vision. The final battle was not over. There would be more challenges, more opponents, more moments of doubt. But one thing was certain, the Respect Revolution had only just begun. And this time, the world was on their side. The final chapter had arrived. The world had changed, and so had the people who lived in it. The Respect Revolution wasn't just a moment in time, it was now a lasting transformation that had reshaped societies, industries, and the way people viewed their roles on this planet. What had once been seen as an idealistic dream had blossomed into a full-fledged movement. And at the center of it all stood Elon Musk and May Musk, whose vision had guided the world to this new dawn. The day after Charles Winter's public endorsement, the world felt different. It was as though the tipping point had been reached, and the dam had finally broken. People who had once felt powerless in the face of corporate greed, inequality, and environmental destruction were now emboldened. They had seen the revolution succeed where so many others had failed. They knew that change, real change, was possible. Elon and May stood together at the edge of Respect City, looking out over the bustling streets and green spaces that were now teeming with life. The city was no longer just a blueprint, it was a thriving example of what the world could be if respect for humanity and the planet were prioritized above all else. "Remember when this was just an idea?" May said, her voice filled with awe as she gazed at the city before them. Elon smiled, though his expression was one of quiet reflection. "I remember thinking we were crazy. But then again, every revolution has its doubters. What matters is that we kept going." They had fought hard to get to this moment, but they knew it wasn't just about them. The Respect Revolution had been propelled forward by the collective effort of millions, people who believed in a world where fairness, sustainability, and equality weren't just buzzwords, but the pillars of a new society. As the first anniversary of Respect City approached, Elon and May found themselves at the forefront of a global movement to establish similar cities around the world. The project had grown beyond the borders of Respect City, it had become a beacon for cities everywhere to adopt the principles of respect, equality, and sustainability. The first international summit was held in Berlin, where leaders from every corner of the globe gathered to discuss how to replicate the success of Respect City in their own countries. It wasn't just a political event, it was a celebration of the collective power of the people. May stood on stage in front of a packed auditorium, her voice echoing through the hall. "We've proven that respect isn't just a concept. It's the foundation for everything, business, education, government, and daily life. Respect City is not a singular solution, it's a model for what is possible when we prioritize people and the planet above all else. And now, we're here to build something even bigger." The applause was deafening. Leaders from around the world stepped forward to pledge their commitment to the principles of Respect City. It was no longer a matter of asking for permission, it was about demanding that every city, every nation, build a future that honored respect for all. But even as the movement reached new heights, Elon and May knew there was still much work to be done. The forces of resistance had not been entirely vanquished. Corporate interests and political factions that had once tried to silence them were now adjusting their tactics, trying to undermine the revolution from within. But the world had changed. The people were no longer passive recipients of decisions made for them, they were active participants in shaping the future. Elon knew that there would always be challenges ahead, that the path to a truly just and sustainable world was not linear. But for the first time, he felt a sense of peace. The revolution had sparked a fire that couldn't be extinguished. The world was on a new path, one that would require constant vigilance and effort, but it was a path of hope. And it was a path that led to a future where respect was the foundation of everything. As they returned to Respect City, Elon and May sat down to reflect on how far they had come. The walls of their home were adorned with pictures of their family, memories of a time before the revolution, when they had simply been two people with a vision. Now, they were leaders of a movement that had changed the world. The world is different now, Elon said softly, his voice thoughtful. May nodded. And it's because of the people. They believed in this. They took ownership of the future. We're just the catalysts. Later that evening, as they stood outside watching the sun set over Respect City, the sky painted in hues of orange and purple, Elon reflected on a message that had been at the heart of their journey. Change wasn't about tearing down what came before. It was about building something better. Sometimes, he said, the hardest part of any revolution is knowing when to start. But once you take that first step, once you show people that it's possible, you can't stop. You can't turn back. The change just keeps coming. May smiled. And that's when you know it's real. The world was different now. The revolution had succeeded, not because it was easy or because everyone agreed, but because it was rooted in something far greater than politics or profit, the belief that every person, every living being, deserved to be treated with respect. The Respect Revolution had been about much more than building a city, it had been about building a new world. A world where respect for all was not just a lofty ideal, but a guiding principle. The final chapter of their story was not an ending. It was the beginning of a new world, one where respect, equality, and sustainability would continue to guide humanity toward a brighter, more harmonious future. And for Elon and May, the true victory was not in their success, but in knowing that they had sparked a revolution that would echo through generations. The world they had dreamed of was now a reality, and its future was in the hands of those who had dared to believe that respect could change everything. The Respect Revolution was not just a story, it was the future. And that future had only just begun. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?